Chapter 1537, Dead Ancestor God. Chapter 1537, Dead Ancestor God. The moment he said that, the dragon phoenix true body had already attacked. Nobody expected that someone would dare to attack beneath the noses of 2 barbarian patriarchs and 3 ancestor gods. This was the barbarian palace and the territory of the barbarian race. Even if the god race had a strong killing intent towards the dragon phoenix true body, they would not dare to attack here. Even Long Tsang and the other dragons were stunned and could not react for a moment, let alone the god and barbarian race. Isn't young Master way too bold? That was the only thought in the minds of many dragons. Earlier on, the dragons were still discussing how to avoid being killed by the god race. To think that the dragon phoenix true body would attempt to kill the firmament sovereign in front of everyone in the barbarian palace. The dragons had not expected that the gift mentioned by the dragon phoenix true body would be the life of the firmament sovereign. The firmament sovereign was slightly stunned with a startled expression. Before the sneer on his lips could disperse, the killing move of the dragon phoenix true body descended. It was too sudden. There was no warning at all. By the time the firmament sovereign realized what was happening, a snow-white and sharp saber had already descended from the skies. One could see clear dragon bones in the saber. That was the dermic weapon left behind by the Saber Emperor, the dragon soul saber. An incomparably violent saber chi circled around and formed a lifelike divine dragon. Opening its gigantic mouth, it let out a dragon roar. Almost at the same time, the dragon phoenix true body spoke at the same time and let out a resounding dragon roar. The 2 dragon roars fused perfectly and formed a resonance with extreme lethality. Roar. The dragon roar reverberated through the barbarian palace in a deafening manner. The dragon roar sounded in the ears of the firmament sovereign. The distance between the 2 of them was way too close. The firmament sovereign's ears hurt and his mind almost exploded. 2 blood arrows burst forth from his ears. The 2 god race mighty figures behind the firmament sovereign were slightly further away. However, they were even worse against the dragon roar. Poof! Poof! As though they were dealt with severe blows, the 2 god race mighty figures spat out a mouthful of blood. Their bodies released blood mists and clear blood scars appeared on their handsome faces. Furthermore, this was the god race. If it was any other living being, they might have died on the spot from that single dragon roar. For example, although the witch race was one of the primordial 9 races, they had weak bloodlines and physiques. The sound of such a terrifying dragon roar could shatter their bodies. However, it was different for the god race. The physiques and bloodlines of the god race were ranked at the top of the primordial 9 races and could fight against the dragon race. Furthermore, the firmament sovereign was the strongest monster incarnate of the god race in tens of thousands of years. Splash! Without the need for him to channel it himself, his body would naturally react and his divine blood circulated on its own given the intense simulation. Instantly, it was raised to the tsunami blood realm. The stinging pain in his ears and the roaring in his mind vanished instantly. The firmament sovereign's eyes regained clarity. However, even so, he had already lost the initiative. Long Imo, how dare you? You have a death wish. The 3 ancestor gods were enraged and hollered, charging towards the dragon phoenix true body right away. Audacious. Insolent. The 2 barbarian patriarchs hollered as well and stomped on the ground. With a boom, their gigantic bodies soared into the air and charged towards the dragon phoenix true body. The barbarian race had to stop him. The fact that the dragon phoenix true body was rude to the barbarian race by attacking in their territory was secondary. If the firmament sovereign died in the barbarian palace, even if he was killed by the dragon phoenix true body, the barbarian race would not be able to escape responsibility and would definitely sow grudges with the god race. That was definitely not what the barbarian race wanted. The barbarian race had massive bodies and the 2 barbarian patriarchs crossed half the palace in 2 steps, descending above the dragon phoenix true body. The hearts of Long Tsang and the others skipped a beat. If the 5 primordial patriarchs were to attack, even the dragon phoenix true body who was a half-martial ancestor would die, let alone kill the firmament sovereign. The difference between a half-martial ancestor and a patriarch was a major cultivation realm. At the Dharma characteristic realm, the primordial races or some demons would awaken their innate divine powers. Although this innate divine power was known as a divine power, it was extremely different from the divine powers of the cultivation world. It was more like an innate ability. However, there were many innate abilities that could grow continuously as one's cultivation realm and cultivation advanced. After the primordial races entered the Mahayana realm, their innate divine powers would grow into true divine powers that could fight against the lesser, greater, and even supreme divine powers of the cultivation world. In other words, the dragon phoenix true body that was still at the half-martial ancestor realm could not fight against patriarchs in terms of strength. A mocking look flashed through the firmament sovereign's eyes as he looked at the dragon phoenix true body that was inches away. Although the dragon phoenix true body attacked suddenly, he knew that he would not die with the protection of the ancestor gods. The dragon phoenix true body was courting death by doing this. Suddenly, the dragon phoenix true body conjured a strange dermic art with his left hand and spread his fingers, releasing a gray fog in his palm. Baron. The voice of the dragon phoenix true body sounded without any fluctuation. With the dragon phoenix true body as the center, an extremely strange dermic power fluctuation burst forth. Gray ripples appeared in the void and spread in all directions like water ripples, engulfing the firmament sovereign instantly. The firmament sovereign's expression changed. He could clearly sense that his lifespan was decreasing at a terrifying speed, even his divine blood could not stop it. The gray-colored ripples spread and enveloped the two patriarchs of the barbarian race and three ancestor gods in the blink of an eye. Pust. The expressions of the two barbarian patriarchs changed as they gasped. Mahayana patriarchs had even sharper senses. They could clearly sense that their lifespans were decreasing faster the closer they were to the dragon phoenix true body. The 5 Mahayana patriarchs released their divine powers at the same time, wanting to block the strange gray-colored ripples. But soon, the 5 Mahayana patriarchs realized that their divine powers could not defend against the deterioration of their lifespans. That dermic art ignored one's cultivation realm. Even their divine powers could not dispel it. Mahayana patriarchs had a long lifespan and human patriarchs had a lifespan of 100,000 years. The lifespans of barbarian patriarchs and ancestor gods were even longer. However, nobody would complain about having too much lifespan. The 2 barbarian patriarchs hesitated for a moment before retreating, breaking free from the gray-colored ripples for the time being. After all, the firmament sovereign was not the young master of the barbarian race. The 2 barbarian patriarchs did not want to lose thousands of years of their lifespans just to save someone from another race. It was not worth it. Although the 2 barbarian patriarchs retreated temporarily, the 3 ancestor gods could not. Among the 3 ancestor gods, there was an elderly man, an old lady and a middle-aged man. Needless to say, the middle-aged ancestor god was in his prime with a long lifespan and was fearless. Although the old lady was in her twilight years, she still had 10,000 years of lifespan remaining and could withstand the deterioration of 2,000 years per breath. However, that old man only had slightly more than 1,000 years to live. Before he arrived before the dragon phoenix true body, the old man's life force deteriorated rapidly without any chance of escaping. Right in front of everyone, the ancestor god died. Chapter 1538, Killing the God. Chapter 1538, Killing the God. Mahayana Patriarch. Furthermore, he was a patriarch of the god race. Even if he only had more than 1,000 years to live, the combat strength he could release was something that even human patriarchs had to avoid. However, under the shroud of Baron, the ancestor god withered like a leaf. His face was filled with wrinkles and his gaze was dim as he collapsed in the barbarian palace. A wary look flashed through the eyes of the 2 barbarian patriarchs. The firmament sovereign's expression changed. He was situated within Baron and could afford the lifespan deterioration for a short period of time. However, the true danger came from the dragon's soul saber that descended from the skies. From the burst of the dragon roar to the release of Baron, the dragon's soul saber of the dragon phoenix true body had not been retracted the entire time and was still slashing towards the head of the firmament sovereign. After the dragon phoenix true body released Baron, 2 barbarian patriarchs retreated and an ancestor god died. The remaining 2 ancestor gods slowed down under Baron as well. This meant that the firmament sovereign had to save himself. The 2 ancestor gods could only arrive if he could defend against Su Zimo's slash and by some time. When the firmament sovereign saw the coldness in the dragon phoenix true body's eyes, his heart skipped a beat. The killing intent of the dragon phoenix true body was way too immense. Humph. The firmament sovereign channeled his essence spirit and his blood chi surged as he channeled his bloodline wildly, wanting to release his bloodline phenomenon to defend against the dragon's soul saber. Suddenly, the firmament sovereign's expression changed. The dragon soul saber of the dragon phoenix true body slashed down and released a saber intent. Under that saber intent, the divine blood in his body froze. How could this be? The firmament sovereign was shocked. The divine blood of the god race could be cultivated to the realm of a bloodline phenomenon innately. But now, against the envelopment of the saber intent, even tsunami blood had vanished, let alone a bloodline phenomenon. His divine blood gradually calmed down and became silent and motionless within his body. Even the dragons did not recognize that slash. The dragon phoenix true body attacked with the determination to kill the firmament sovereign here. He did not hold back at all and released the most powerful move in the Saber Emperor's inheritance, Sea Calming. Once Sea Calming was released, even if the firmament sovereign possessed incomparably strong divine blood, he would have to calm down. After losing the initiative, it was already too late for the firmament sovereign to condense a dermic art. His gaze intensified and his eyes turned golden instantly, shining brightly. Visual technique. The instant release of a visual technique was the only method that could turn defeat into victory and negate the danger right now. However, the moment he released his god's eye, he saw an even brighter red light burst forth from the eyes of the dragon phoenix true body. Illumination Eye. This was a visual technique that was even more terrifying than the Illumination Dragon Eye. The 2 visual techniques collided first in midair. The moment the golden light made contact with the red light, it began to dissipate. The red light surged in and entered the eyes of the firmament sovereign instantly. Ah! The firmament sovereign shrieked tragically and his eyes were blinded by 2 red beams of light. He almost fainted from the pain. However, as the strongest monster incarnate of the god race, he could still maintain his clarity and knew that the true danger had just arrived. It was the dragon's soul saber above his head. The firmament sovereign did not even have time to summon his destiny dermic weapon and could only raise his arms instinctively to defend against the dragon's soul saber. Poof! The blade descended and severed 2 of the firmament sovereign's arms without any resistance. Thereafter, right in front of everyone, the blade entered the top of the firmament sovereign's head and slashed down unhurriedly. It tore through his consciousness and destroyed his essence spirit, splitting him into 2. The 2 halves of the firmament sovereign's body slid down the blade slowly. The blade sliced through the flesh and bones of the firmament sovereign with a jarring sound. The dragon's soul saber was way too sharp. That was a dermic weapon left behind by the Saber Emperor and was a true divine weapon that even the body of the firmament sovereign could not defend against. Under the envelopment of Sea Calming saber intent, although the body of the firmament sovereign was split into 2, the blood from the wound and the organs that were exposed were still frozen in his body. Not a single drop of blood splattered. Instantly, the entire barbarian palace fell into a dead silence. The young master of the barbarian race, the 2 barbarian patriarchs and the dragons were so shocked that they forgot to breathe. The young master of the god race, the renowned firmament sovereign, was slain in the barbarian palace. Furthermore, it was right in front of 5 patriarchs of the primordial races. Moreover, the 5 patriarchs of the primordial races made their moves. They had already attacked at the first moment but still failed to save the firmament sovereign. More than that, an ancestor god even died first after his lifespan was exhausted. The entire process seemed long, but in fact, it occurred within a few breaths. The firmament's sovereign did not die in futility. In that short period of time, the Dragon Phoenix true body released many trump cards. First was the Dragon Roar and Sea Calming, followed by Baron and Illumination Eye. Big trouble. Long Shi and the others were pale and their hearts skipped a beat. Although the Baron of the Dragon Phoenix true body was powerful, it was not fatal for patriarchs with sufficient lifespans. Furthermore, the power of Baron was dissipating. A trump card that could threaten patriarchs was already used. The Dragon Phoenix true body was definitely in danger of dying in the wrath of the remaining two ancestor gods. Furthermore, this was the Barbarian Palace, the territory of the Barbarian race. The Barbarian race must be furious that the Dragon Phoenix true body killed the Firmament's sovereign. If the Barbarian race attacked the Dragon Phoenix true body as well. Long Imo, how dare you? How dare you kill in the Barbarian Palace? Don't think that the Barbarian race won't dare to suppress you just because you're a taboo Dragon Phoenix. A Barbarian Patriarch shouted with a dark expression. Indeed, the Barbarian Patriarch lashed out right away. Cut the crap with him. The old lady Ancestor God said sinisterly, taboos are bloodthirsty. He's already so arrogant before he's fully grown. If he grows into an emperor, our primordial races will probably be massacred by him. Kill. The middle-aged Ancestor God hollered and his blood chi burst forth. A gigantic sword appeared out of nowhere between his hands and he charged towards the Dragon Phoenix true body. The old lady Ancestor God's spirit consciousness moved and a walking stick flew out from the ring on her finger. Gripping it, it landed on the ground with a boom and let out a piercing sound. Initially, the two Barbarian Patriarchs were hesitant. However, the two of them exchanged glances and decided to attack. Boom! Boom! Two tall figures swayed and arrived in the hall, exuding a savage aura as though an ancient divine being had descended with a rampant might. Four Ancestor realm experts descended at the same time and attacked the Dragon Phoenix true body. In the blink of an eye, the Dragon Phoenix true body fell into immense danger. After entering the Mahayana to become a true patriarch, one's strength would increase exponentially. Their physiques and bodies would transform qualitatively. This difference was extremely difficult to make up for. Long Sung and the others wanted to help the Dragon Phoenix true body, but they were powerless and could not approach him, let alone fight against the patriarchs. Chapter 1539, Battling the Ancestor Gods. Chapter 1539, Battling the Ancestor Gods. The might of an Ancestor realm expert was way too strong and arrived like a torrential storm with a suffocating pressure. With the power of Baron earlier on, the Ancestor Gods were wary and did not exude their might. Now that Baron had dispersed, the four Ancestor realm experts no longer had any reservations and attacked one after another. The two Ancestor Gods carried torrential killing intent and summoned their dermic treasures right away, slashing towards Su Zimo. Dermic treasures were a major cultivation realm above dermic weapons. This was a qualitative transformation. This transformation was not something that any weapon refinement technique or rare materials could achieve. No matter what dermic weapon it was, it could only be called a dermic treasure after the refinement of divine powers. The more divine powers were tempered, the greater the power of the dermic treasure. A dermic treasure refined by a single lesser divine power was naturally inferior to a dermic treasure refined by 10 lesser divine powers. However, the refinement of 10 lesser divine powers could not compare to the refinement of a single greater divine power. However, be it greater or lesser divine powers, dermic treasures had an absolute advantage against dermic weapons. The Dragon Phoenix true body's gaze intensified and his blood chi surged as he roared into the skies. Under the powerful might of the four patriarchs, his figure changed rapidly. Roar! A dragon roar and phoenix cry burst forth. Immediately after, in front of everyone, the Dragon Phoenix true body vanished and was replaced by a gigantic living being. The dragon's head and tail were raised and it had a pair of gigantic wings on its back. It was shrouded in a red glow and was born from the flames, resembling a god that controlled flames. The claws beneath the massive living being's abdomen were sharp, as though they could tear any living being apart. A terrifying might burst forth from the living being that was comparable to the 4 ancestor realm experts. The 2 ancestral barbarians and 2 ancestor gods froze for a moment against the pressure. The bloodline of the god race was strong. However, against that massive living being, the bloodline of the god race was suppressed. That was the might of a taboo. The dragon phoenix had descended. The temperature of the barbarian palace rose. Long Song and the others retreated with shocked expressions. Although the dragon phoenix true body had long returned to the Dragon Bone Valley, even they were seeing the true form of the dragon phoenix for the first time. The shock and impact was indescribable. In the middle of the barbarian palace, the collision of the dragon phoenix and the 4 patriarchs caused the surrounding space to distort. If Long Song and the others did not retreat and were sucked in by accident, there was a high chance they would be torn into pieces. If he continued in his human form, it would be difficult for the dragon phoenix true body to fight the 4 patriarchs. He could only fight if he transformed into his true form of a dragon phoenix and channeled his combat strength and bloodline to its limits. A hesitant look flashed through the eyes of the 2 barbarian patriarchs when the dragon phoenix's true form appeared. They did not wish to offend the god race nor the dragon race. Furthermore, the dragon race had a taboo in this generation. The 2 ancestor gods did not hesitate at all. When they saw the taboo true body, their killing intensified and they were the first to reach the dragon phoenix true body. Even if it's a taboo, the god race will dare to kill it. The middle-aged ancestor god said murderously. Although the dragon phoenix was a taboo, he felt that it had not grown completely yet. This was the best opportunity to kill the taboo. The middle-aged ancestor god swung the gigantic sword in his hands and his blood chi surged, releasing a blinding golden light that slashed down at the wings of the dragon phoenix true body. As for the old lady, she swung her walking stick towards the dragon phoenix true body's head. Although she was already in her twilight years, her burst power was still extremely powerful and shocking. The combination of the 2 of them slashed and twisted, sealing the path of the dragon phoenix true body completely. This walking stick was made from the true bones of an ancestral dragon. The ancestral dragon's resentment was sealed within and it was refined with the blood of the ancestral dragon for 7,749 years. The old lady said sinisterly, "Taboo, I'll let you have a taste of the might of my dragon head walking stick." Roar. As the divine blood surged in the old lady's walking stick, a gigantic, menacing dragon head appeared and let out a resounding dragon roar. After the head of the divine dragon charged out, its eyes were bloodshot and filled with endless resentment. It had lost its rationality completely and seemed like it wanted to destroy all living beings in the world. Even against the taboo dragon phoenix, there was no fear in the divine dragon's eyes. Clang! Clang! The 5 claws beneath the dragon phoenix true body extended at the same time and grabbed the gigantic sword that was slashing down from midair. "You must have a death wish." The middle-aged ancestor god harumphed coldly. There were claw shadows and a cold glint. Clang! 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 Sparks flew as the dragon phoenix claw collided repeatedly against the ancestor god's gigantic sword. The gigantic sword could not sever the dragon phoenix claw. Instead, it was gripped tightly by the dragon phoenix claw and the blade was locked without budging at all. At the same time, the dragon phoenix true body flapped its wings and smashed towards the incoming divine dragon's head, shattering it. Immediately, the dragon phoenix true body opened its mouth and bit the incoming dragon head walking stick. The old lady was shocked as well and pulled her dragon head walking stick instinctively, wanting to retreat. However, it did not budge no matter how she tugged with all her might. Although the dermic treasures of the middle-aged ancestor god and the old lady were powerful, they were still dermic treasures refined with lesser divine powers. However, as a taboo, the Dragon Phoenix true body's strongest and most lethal parts of his entire body were the Dragon Phoenix claws below his abdomen and his sharp fangs. The Ancestor God dermic weapons could not injure the Dragon Phoenix true body either. Instead, they were controlled by the Dragon Phoenix true body, and both parties exerted strength. The expressions of the middle-aged Ancestor God and Old Lady changed slightly. Their combined strength could not retrieve their weapons. Barbarian race, what are you waiting for? Suddenly, the middle-aged Ancestor God hollered. The two barbarian patriarchs exchanged glances. After a moment of hesitation, they charged forward and swung their fists to suppress the Dragon Phoenix true body. Their gigantic fists descended like mountains with a terrifying might. Swoosh! The Dragon Phoenix true body did not turn back at all. He swayed his tail that was burning with scarlet flames and whipped the fists of the two barbarian patriarchs with a loud bang. Boom! It was earth-shaking. Even the barbarian palace trembled violently. Thud! 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 The two barbarian patriarchs could not help but retreat continuously with shocked expressions. The burst power of the Ancestor realm that they released was returned by a single tail whip of a half-martial Ancestor Dragon Phoenix. Furthermore, after the exchange with the Dragon Phoenix tail, the two barbarian patriarchs received scarlet flames that refused to extinguish on their fists. The flames even burned along the arms of the two barbarian patriarchs. The thick fur on the barbarian patriarchs' arms turned into ashes before long. The two barbarian patriarchs flapped the flames on their bodies in a flustered manner and only extinguished the flames after a long time. Of course, although the flames burned their fur to ashes, they could not injure their bodies. The bloodline and essence spirit of the barbarian race were relatively ordinary. Their physical bodies were the strongest. That strength was not only in terms of the strength of one's body, but also their burst power and defense. Even after being burned by the flames of the Dragon Phoenix for a long time, the skin of the two barbarian patriarchs merely turned black from the sear without any injuries. Chapter 1540, Rebirth. Chapter 1540, Rebirth. After the Dragon Phoenix true body pushed back the two barbarian patriarchs, he suddenly exerted strength and flapped his gigantic wings. He soared into the air and shook his dragon head, ripping wildly with 5 claws. The expressions of the two Ancestor gods changed. Initially, they were in a stalemate with the Dragon Phoenix true body because of the Ancestor god dermic treasures in their hands. Neither party was willing to relent. Now that the Dragon Phoenix true body suddenly exerted strength, the two Ancestor gods could not control their bodies and were yanked far away by the Dragon Phoenix true body, flung into the air. The two Ancestor gods gripped their dermic treasures tightly and were dizzy from the Dragon Phoenix true body's toss. If they did not let go, the bones in their bodies would shatter. The two Ancestor gods could only let go and abandon their dermic treasures for the time being. The Dragon Phoenix true body snatched away 2 dermic treasures and threw them casually on the ground. He glared in the direction of the two Ancestor gods and suddenly opened his mouth. Swoosh! An incomparably scorching scarlet flame burst forth from the mouth of the Dragon Phoenix true body that contained an extremely terrifying power, as though it could burn everything in the world to ashes. It was the divine phoenix flame. That was the innate divine power of a taboo dragon phoenix. Up till now, there was no living being's flame in Tianhuang mainland that could go against the Dragon Phoenix flame. Thin tears appeared in the void everywhere the Dragon Phoenix flame passed. The flame transformed into 2 red beams of light and arrived before the two Ancestor gods in the blink of an eye. The middle-aged Ancestor god and Old Lady had grim expressions and did not dare to be careless as the storage ring on their fingers shone. A gigantic golden shield appeared in both their hands. Bang! Bang! There were 2 loud bangs. The middle-aged Ancestor god and Old Lady erected the 2 golden shields in front of them. Sand and gravel flew as the gigantic shield shone with a blinding light to defend against the 2 incoming Dragon Phoenix flames. The Dragon Phoenix true body channeled its essence spirit to its limits. The might of the dragon phoenix flames increased exponentially and gradually devoured the golden light. It struck the two gigantic golden shields and continued burning. However, the two golden shields were also dermic treasures. Although the might of the dragon phoenix flames was terrifying, it could not penetrate the defense of the gigantic golden shield. The dragon phoenix true body's gaze was resolute and he had no intention of stopping. He continued releasing. The dragon phoenix flames engulfed the gigantic golden shield's whole and continued burning relentlessly. Many flames even wrapped around the gigantic golden shields and landed on the walls of the barbarian palace. The gigantic boulders melted into lava in the blink of an eye and flowed down the walls slowly. Even the ceiling of the barbarian palace shook. The two barbarian patriarchs had just steadied themselves when they saw that. Suddenly, both their expressions changed and their pupils constricted. Right in front of the two of them, the gigantic golden shield in the hands of the two ancestor gods transformed gradually and turned into a scarlet color that was almost transparent. The gigantic golden shields were burned through by the dragon phoenix flames. Ugh! The two ancestor gods behind the gigantic golden shields grunted. The gigantic golden shields were burned to such an extent and the palms of the two ancestor gods were injured. Unable to hide any longer, they soared into the air. Boom! The dragon phoenix flames intensified and sent the gigantic golden shields flying. Instantly, they devoured the two ancestor gods. If it was a patriarch of the human race, he would most likely die if he was devoured by the dragon phoenix flames. However, the figures of the two ancestor gods were still extremely clear in the scarlet flames. They were filled with a powerful aura and shone brightly. Use our divine blood as a medium and destroy it. The middle-aged ancestor god bit his tongue gently and spat out a stream of golden divine blood. The divine blood contained an extremely tremendous energy that scattered into the dragon phoenix flames. Instantly, the flames were extinguished and smoke billowed. The reaction of the two ancestor gods was fast enough. However, they were still burned badly by the dragon phoenix flames and many holes appeared on their clothes. Even their bodies were burned. Of course, given the bloodline and immense regeneration capabilities of the ancestor gods, that bit of injury was nothing. The divine blood sizzled when it collided against the dragon phoenix flames. Smoke billowed and mist rose. Be it the dragon phoenix flames or the divine blood, both contained immense energy. The mist created by the collision of the two energies was shocking. Watch out! Right then, the warning of the two barbarian patriarchs sounded. Immediately after, a chilling killing intent descended. The hearts of the middle-aged ancestor god and old lady almost jumped out of their throats. Not good. Both of their expressions changed and they sensed the aura of death. The divine blood collided with the dragon phoenix flames and created a mist of chi that blocked the middle-aged ancestor god and old lady's vision and senses. However, the dragon phoenix true body knew their location accurately. The moment the mist rose, the dragon phoenix true body attacked. The wings flapped and the dragon phoenix true body transformed into a streak of red light. Instantly, he arrived before the two ancestor gods and extended 5 sharp claws to envelop the middle-aged ancestor god. At the same time, the dragon phoenix true body opened his mouth and bit in the direction of the old lady. Poof! 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 The middle-aged ancestor god's path of retreat was sealed by the 5 dragon phoenix claws and his powerful body was torn into pieces in the blink of an eye. Golden divine blood splattered everywhere. His organs were splattered all over the ground with a torrential blood chi. Snap! The mouth of the dragon phoenix true body snapped the old lady's body into 2 instantly. Bang! The phoenix's tail descended and whipped the 2 halves of the body heavily, turning them into blood mists without any corpse left. Although the old lady was in her twilight years, she was an ancestor god after all. The dragon phoenix true body was afraid that he could not bite the old lady to death with a single bite and his tail followed up with a fatal attack, whipping the old lady into a blood mist. In the blink of an eye, 2 ancestor gods were dead. One was torn apart by the dragon phoenix true body. The other one was even worse. She was turned into a blood mist without any body remaining. The dragon phoenix true body panted slightly. Apart from the fact that the power of the taboo was strong enough, the more important reason why the two ancestor gods could be killed was because they did not use any divine powers. The two ancestor gods believed that the power of the ancestor realm was enough to kill the dragon phoenix true body. However, the two of them had not expected that the dragon phoenix's power would even surpass them after he transformed into a complete taboo body. The battle seemed to have ended. However, the two barbarian patriarchs had strange expressions as they shook their heads gently. The dragon phoenix true body frowned and his heart skipped a beat when he recalled something. As expected of a taboo. Even at the half-martial ancestor realm, it can fight against patriarchs in terms of strength. Right then, the middle-aged ancestor god's voice sounded with deep resentment. We were way too careless. The old lady's voice sounded at the same time as she said slowly, we should have used our divine powers right away to kill him. In the void, the divine blood of the middle-aged ancestor god and old lady coagulated without dispersing. Soon. Right in front of everyone, the two divine bloods gathered rapidly and appeared once more in the blink of an eye. The two ancestor gods were perfectly fine without any injuries on their bodies. As long as their essence spirits were not dead, they could use blood rebirth. Those were the means of the Mahayana realm. Chapter 1541, Heavenly God Descent. Chapter 1541, Heavenly God Descent. At the Mahayana realm, it was too difficult to kill someone who had comprehended the divine power of blood rebirth. Even if their physical bodies were destroyed, as long as their essence spirits were still alive and a single drop of blood remained, they could release their divine powers and make use of that single drop of blood to reconstruct their entire bodies. Shoo! Shoo! With a thought of their spirit consciousnesses, the gigantic sword Dermic treasure and the dragon head walking stick turned into two streams of light that returned to their hands. Fellow Taoists of the barbarian race, there's no need to hold back. Summon your divine powers. The middle-aged god race being said coldly. Heavenly God Descent. The middle-aged ancestor god and old lady shouted at the same time. A powerful might descended from the skies and entered the two of them. Instantly, golden lights burst forth from their bodies. That was a lesser divine power that was the easiest for the god race to comprehend. That divine power could allow the god race to obtain an immense increase in their strength in a short period of time using the power of the immemorial heavenly god from an unknown location. In fact, two gigantic heavenly god phantoms appeared behind the two ancestor gods and shone brightly with a tremendous might. Barbarian strength. The two barbarian patriarchs released their divine powers at the same time. When that barbarian divine power was released, streams of aura surged from the two barbarians and scurried on the surface of their bodies like countless little rats. In the blink of an eye, the flesh of the two barbarian patriarchs expanded. This is bad. Longsong was secretly alarmed as he slapped his storage bag, wanting to send a message to the Dragon Bone Valley to get patriarchs of the dragon race to come and save them. You guys want to leave after killing our young master of the god race? The two god race mighty figures who spat out blood from the shock of the dragon phoenix true body noticed this and lunged towards Longsong and the others. Both god race mighty figures hated the dragon phoenix true body to the core. However, they could not win him either and were fuming internally. Now, they finally found an opportunity to vent their frustrations. The two god race mighty figures were naturally paragons of the god race to be able to be qualified to accompany the firmament sovereign for the visit to the barbarian race. They were confident that they could kill the dragons. Humph. Longsong's expression darkened with killing intent as he said coldly, how dare the likes of the two of you dream of touching me? He could not interfere in the battle between the dragon phoenix true body and the four patriarchs. However, he was a five-clawed divine dragon. Apart from the dragon phoenix true body, he had never feared anyone of the same cultivation realm. When he entered the barbarian palace, the two god race mighty figures even berated him. At that time, Longsong's killing intent was triggered. However, He had reservations and did not dare to attack the two god race mighty figures right in front of the 5 Ancestor realm experts in the Barbarian palace. But now, the dragon phoenix true body had already attacked and killed the firmament sovereign as well as one of the Ancestor gods. Longsong no longer had any reservations. At the most, he would think about the consequences after killing to his heart's content. Kill. Longsong's gaze intensified as he strode towards the two god race mighty figures. Bang! 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 He fought against the two god race beings in melee combat and their aura, flesh and bones collided repeatedly with dull thuds. Instantly, the bloodlines of Longsong and the two god race beings were raised to the tsunami blood realm. However, the moment they exchanged blows, the two god race mighty figures shuddered and their eyes were filled with shock. Although the two of them were paragons of the god races and joined forces, they were still suppressed by Longsong. After just a few rounds of head-on collisions, both their arms were numb from the shock and their teeth ached while their organs were severely shaken. This was an absolute suppression in terms of strength. What was even more shocking was that Longsong had yet to transform into his true form as a dragon. If Longsong were to transform into his true form, his combat strength would increase by at least 30%. Bloodline phenomenon. The two god race beings did not hesitate and released their bloodline phenomenons right away. Two ancient and mysterious pyramids appeared beneath the two of them with millions of living beings prostrating around them in pious prayers. An endless stream of power surged into the two god race mighty figures. The auras of the two god race mighty figures were rising rapidly. Roar! Suddenly, Longsong reared his head and howled into the skies, letting out a resounding dragon roar. Immediately after, his blood chi surged and gushed. In the blink of an eye, a menacing and massive divine dragon was formed behind him. The divine dragon was covered in green scales and had a sharp gaze. It had 2 horns on its head and 5 claws beneath its abdomen that shone with a cold glint. A tremendous might of the dragon race descended. 5-clawed divine dragon. The two god race mighty figures could not help but exclaim with widened eyes when they saw the divine dragon phantom. A 5-clawed divine dragon was the most noble and powerful bloodline of the dragon race. The two of them had not expected that this follower of the dragon phoenix true body would actually be a 5-clawed divine dragon. After the 5-clawed divine dragon appeared, the millions of living beings that were kneeling around the pyramid raised their heads with horrified expressions. Even the gods on the pyramids could not protect them. Boom! The divine dragon phantom soared into the air and smashed towards the 2 pyramids with a loud bang. Crack! 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 Cracks appeared on the 2 pyramids and countless gravel rolled down. The pyramids collapsed. The 2 god race mighty figures shuddered as though they were struck by lightning. Right then, another dragon roar sounded. The terrifying 5-clawed divine dragon charged towards them. It's just a bloodline phenomenon. How much power do you have left? A god race mighty figure hollered and swung the sword in his hands, wanting to shatter the divine dragon phantom. In his opinion, although the divine dragon phantom destroyed their pyramids, it had lost most of its power and was left with almost nothing. Clang! When his gigantic sword struck the divine dragon, it slid down the gigantic dragon scales and sparks flew. It did not manage to cut in. The god race being's eyes widened and he suddenly felt chills run down his spine as he was horrified internally. Something's not right. This isn't a bloodline phenomenon. No matter how realistic a bloodline phenomenon was, it was formed from blood chi. When the god race being slashed down, he struck actual dragon scales and flesh. Not good. The god race being yelled, it's his true form. The true form of a 5-clawed divine dragon. Although he realized it, it was too late. While Longsong released his bloodline phenomenon, he transformed into his true form of a 5-clawed divine dragon and charged forward at the same time without giving the 2 god race mighty figures a chance to struggle. Longsong opened his gigantic dragon mouth and bit a god race mighty figure. There was a swoosh. Long Song's mouth closed. The god race mighty figure vanished and was crushed into a meat sludge by Long Song. Golden divine blood flowed slowly through the gaps in Long Song's teeth. Boom! Long Song waved his dragon tail. Before the other god race mighty figure could react, a huge shadow enveloped him and whipped his body into a blood mist without a corpse left. God race mighty figures did not have capabilities such as blood rebirth. The mighty figure's body and essence spirit were destroyed by the divine dragon's tail whip and he died. When Long Song released his might, 2 god race mighty figures died. Chapter 1542, Reverse Scale Dissipation. Chapter 1542, Reverse Scale Dissipation. Although Long Song killed the 2 god race mighty figures, it did not affect the current situation at all. Even though he had transformed into his true form as a 5-clawed divine dragon, he was not qualified to interfere in the battle between the Ancestor realm. The 2 barbarian patriarchs and 2 ancestor gods released their divine powers one after another. However, the dragon phoenix true body still had a calm expression without any fear. It was indeed difficult for one to die after advancing to the Mahayana realm and comprehending blood rebirth. However, difficult to die did not mean impossible to die. Otherwise, the human race would not have lost so many patriarchs over the years. Even for Mahayana patriarchs, damage to their essence spirits were absolutely fatal. Once the essence spirit was destroyed and one's soul was dispersed, even if their bodies were intact, it would mean death and dissipation of their consciousness. There was another way. If a Mahayana patriarch had every single fiber of life in his flesh destroyed without even a single drop of blood remaining, even if his essence spirit was intact, he would not be able to reconstruct his body. The combat strength of Mahayana patriarchs who lost their bodies was reduced and it was much easier to kill them later on. The dragon phoenix true body had a cold expression. The blood rebirth of Mahayana patriarchs could not scare him. He possessed a secret skill that could kill essence spirits directly. The reverse scale. The glabella of the dragon phoenix true body shone when he saw the 2 barbarian patriarchs and 2 ancestor gods charge forward. His massive spirit consciousness compressed continuously and a shuddering spirit consciousness fluctuation spread. A palm-sized scarlet scale slowly floated out from the glabella of the dragon true body. It was in the shape of a crescent and looked ordinary. However, the appearance of the dragon scale caused the entire world to tremble. It was as though space had frozen. The reverse scale had descended. The dragon phoenix true body believed that even if the 4 patriarchs of the primordial races were not killed by the reverse scale, their essence spirits would be severely injured. At that time, he would be able to gain an absolute advantage and crush them. The expressions of the 2 barbarian patriarchs changed. However, there was no fear on the faces of the 2 barbarian patriarchs. Instead, there was a look of incredulity. Impossible. The 2 barbarian patriarchs were alarmed. The young master of the barbarian race looked at everything with widened eyes in disbelief as well. After the reverse scale appeared, beyond the dragon phoenix true body's expectations, although the 4 patriarchs of the primordial races paused, they did not condense their essence spirit's secret skills to defend. The 2 ancestor gods frowned slightly with bewildered expressions. The dragon phoenix true body's heart skipped a beat as he narrowed his eyes. Right in front of him, the reverse scale that had just been formed dissipated rapidly and vanished in the blink of an eye. Haha. The middle-aged ancestor god heaved a sigh of relief and burst into laughter. Long Mo, you're truly foolish. You're only asking to be humiliated by releasing an essence spirit's secret skill in the territory of the barbarian race. Every single one of the primordial 9 races specialized in different strengths and domains. Every single primordial race had a different weakness. For example, the witch race had the weakest physique and bloodline among the primordial 9 races and were not much different from ordinary humans. However, the witch race was the strongest in terms of essence spirit cultivation and comprehension. For the barbarian race, it was the opposite. The barbarian race had an extremely strong physique and their cultivation of their bodies alone surpassed the dragon and god race. However, the barbarian race had the weakest essence spirit cultivation among the primordial 9 races. In the primordial and ancient wars, almost no expert of the same cultivation realm could hurt or severely injure the barbarian race. However, many barbarians died in the 2 battles. Most of their bodies were left intact, they died to essence spirit's secret skills. That was the reason why the ancient barbarian emperor used a divine power in the territory of the barbarian race such that no essence spirit's secret skills could be conjured. In the territory of the barbarian race, dermic arts, divine powers, or one's body and bloodline could be used. The only thing they could not release was essence spirit's secret skills. Actually, the 2 barbarian patriarchs were already shocked and the dragon phoenix true body could condense the reverse scale. With the divine power of the ancient barbarian emperor in the territory of the barbarian race, essence spirit's secret skills could not even be condensed, let alone released. Earlier on, the reverse scale was truly formed. However, it could not defend against the divine power left behind by the ancient barbarian emperor and dissipated rapidly. The dragon phoenix true body realized this before long. This change was somewhat beyond his control. Kill. The middle-aged ancestor god hollered and the heavenly god phantom swayed. His body shone brightly as he swung his gigantic sword and charged forward once more. The old lady swayed as well and made use of the divine power of heavenly god descent. Instantly, she raised her dragon head walking stick and smashed it down with an overwhelming might. 2 barbarian patriarchs charged forward as well. The dragon phoenix true body could sense that the barbarian race was still wary and restrained themselves, not releasing their dermic treasures. Even so, the power released by the 4 patriarchs when they used their divine powers was still extremely terrifying and could kill him. Without hesitation, the dragon true body channeled his essence spirit and a spirit turtle appeared on the surface of the sea in his consciousness, roaring into the skies. Condense. The dragon true body hollered. A divine light burst forth from his glabella and condensed in midair. Buzz. A divine power that shook the world descended. In front of the dragon true body, a gigantic stone shield appeared with a wave of his hands. It was rough and ancient with curved patterns etched on it in a mysterious manner. The stone shield resembled an ancient turtle shell. The ravines on the turtle shell were already shining brightly with a mysterious luster. It was an innate divine power of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness, the spirit turtle shield. This was also the strongest defensive technique of the dragon phoenix true body. Almost the moment the spirit turtle shield was formed, the attacks of the 4 patriarchs descended. Clang! Clang! The gigantic sword and dragon head walking stick struck the spirit turtle shield almost at the same time. Bang! Bang! The fists of the 2 barbarian patriarchs struck the spirit turtle shield as well and let out a loud bang. The scene seemed to have frozen. After a momentary pause, a bedazzling glow burst forth from the spirit turtle shield and a rampant aura surged. Snap! The spirit turtle shield shattered. Both the gigantic sword and the dragon head walking stick were repelled. The 2 barbarian patriarchs retreated half a step as well. The dragon phoenix true body was in an even worse state as he descended rapidly. With a boom, he smashed heavily into the ground, causing sand and rocks to fly everywhere as dust billowed. Cough! The dragon phoenix true body coughed out a mouthful of blood and felt immense pain all over his body. His bones and tendons felt like they were about to split. After the 4 patriarchs released their divine powers, their strength increased exponentially. That sort of power from divine powers was way too strong. Although the spirit turtle shield blocked most of the divine power, much of it still surged into his body and dealt a huge blow to his body. Young master! Long Tsang and the others exclaimed when they saw that. Don't come. The voice of the dragon phoenix true body sounded with an unquestionable tone. Long Tsang and the others stopped hurriedly. The dragons knew that they would only burden the dragon phoenix true body if they advanced rashly and would only drag him down. Long Tsang took out a messaging talisman from his storage bag and tore it apart instantly. Turning into a streak of light, the talisman sped out of the barbarian palace. Bang! Before the streak of light flew out of the barbarian palace, it was grabbed by a gigantic palm and crushed instantly. The figure of the young master of the barbarian race appeared. Chapter 1543, 10 Great Demon Kings. Chapter 1543, 10 Great Demon Kings. Man who? Longsong was enraged and hollered, "What are you doing? If the young master dies in your barbarian palace, prepare to endure the wrath of the dragon race." A wary look flashed through the eyes of the young master of the barbarian race when he heard that. He gripped his fists gently and said in a deep voice, "Longsong, your young master was the one who broke the rules in this matter first. You can't blame us for attacking." Even so, his tone clearly softened. The young master of the barbarian race continued, "Furthermore, even if you send a message back to the Dragon Bone Valley now, it'll definitely be too late. Long Mo won't be able to last that long against the combined forces of 4 patriarchs." Boom! Before his sentence was finished, a loud bang sounded from the battlefield. The middle-aged ancestor god and old lady summoned their dermic treasures and chased after the dragon phoenix true body, slashing down viciously. The gigantic sword sliced the ground of the barbarian palace into 2. The power of divine powers released by the dragon head walking stick even created a huge pit in the ground. "Master!" Solitary Cloud cried with bloodshot eyes. He wanted to charge forward and fight the middle-aged ancestor god and old lady to the death, but he was held back by Longsong. "The young master isn't dead yet." Longsong hollered. True enough. There was no sign of the dragon phoenix true body in the gigantic pit on the ground. The attacks of the 2 ancestor gods missed completely. The expressions of the middle-aged ancestor god and old lady changed slightly. Suddenly, a chilling killing intent descended and the figure of the dragon phoenix true body appeared behind the old lady. His 5 claws covered the skies as he grabbed towards her. "Watch out!" The middle-aged ancestor god hollered and swung the gigantic sword in his hands, slashing towards the dragon phoenix true body. The 2 experts of the barbarian race attacked from behind as well. The dragon phoenix true body frowned slightly and the 2 pairs of gigantic wings behind him flapped. He transformed into a scarlet golden streak of light and vanished on the spot instantly. It was too fast. The attacks of the 4 patriarchs of the primordial races missed. 2 pairs of wings? The 4 patriarchs were slightly stunned. They could clearly see that apart from the pair of scarlet wings on the back of the dragon phoenix true body, there was an even larger pair of golden wings. His wings shone with a resplendent glow and were magnificent without any flaws. It was the second divine power of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness, extreme speed. During his cultivation in the ancestral dragon ground in the past few years, the dragon phoenix true body's comprehension of that divine power deepened and his chemistry with the dragon phoenix wings improved as well. The current dragon phoenix true body was much faster than when he was escaping on Penglai Island. Against the encirclement of the 4 patriarchs of the primordial races, the dragon phoenix true body relied on his extreme speed divine power and was still moving with ease. Although the 4 patriarchs of the primordial races were strong, they could not touch the dragon phoenix true body at all. Not only that, if the 2 ancestor gods relaxed their minds, they would suffer from the killing move of the dragon phoenix true body and encounter danger repeatedly. "No, this won't do." The middle-aged ancestor god was secretly alarmed. If this continued, they would be disadvantaged instantly in terms of strength once their divine powers dissipated and the heavenly god phantom disappeared. At that time, the 4 of them would definitely not be able to defend against the killing power of the dragon phoenix. "We have to force him to fight us head-on." The middle-aged ancestor god sent a voice transmission to the old lady using his spirit consciousness as he chased. "I'll go deal with those cubs from the dragon race and force him to show himself." The old lady sneered coldly and left the battlefield after saying that. She leaned on her dragon head walking stick and lunged towards Longsong and the others with a murderous intent. The dragons were shocked. They could not defend against the power of the Ancestor God at all. Even as a 5-clawed divine dragon, Longsong was as insignificant as an ant against the power of an Ancestor God. Boom! Boom! Suddenly, a gigantic, thick stone pillar descended from the void. The stone pillar was grayish-white and there was a 5-clawed divine dragon climbing on it. It exuded an ancient aura and possessed a rampant might that could suppress the 10,000 races. It was another innate divine power of the dragon phoenix true body, the ancestral dragon divine pillar. The ancestral dragon divine pillar descended from the skies and was thousands of feet long. It created a huge hole in the roof of the barbarian palace and smashed down towards the old lady. Good timing. The old lady's expression was unchanged as she channeled her blood chi and swung her dragon head walking stick, striking viciously at the ancestral dragon divine pillar. Boom! There was a deafening bang. A series of cracks appeared on the ancestral dragon divine pillar and it shattered into nothingness in the blink of an eye. The middle-aged ancestor god charged over as well and swung the gigantic sword in his hands. He ignored the dragon phoenix true body and charged towards Longsong and the others. He knew very well that even if he attacked the dragon phoenix true body, it would be useless. Before his gigantic sword descended, the dragon phoenix true body would make use of his extreme speed divine power to leave first. What he wanted to do was to force the dragon phoenix true body to attack them and fight them head-on. The two barbarian patriarchs frowned slightly. As Mahayana patriarchs, they were already bullying the young by attacking a half-martial ancestor. Now that they even used such despicable methods, the two barbarian patriarchs were disgusted. The barbarian race had always been open and aboveboard in their actions. When they saw that, the two barbarian patriarchs hesitated for a moment and did not charge forward. The dragon phoenix true body appeared and shielded Longsong and the others. He glared at the middle-aged ancestor god and old lady with a cold expression. "Young master, leave this place and don't worry about us." Longsong realized that the patriarchs of the primordial races could not injure the dragon phoenix true body at all. That was the reason why they were now the targets of the attacks. "That's right, leave first." Long Shi urged as well. "Nobody will be able to leave today," the old lady said sinisterly. "Leave?" The dragon phoenix true body had a burning gaze and said slowly with a murderous aura, "Since I chose to attack, I had no intention of leaving. Furthermore, you guys won't be able to leave today either." The two ancestor gods wanted to kill the dragon phoenix true body. However, neither of them realized that the dragon phoenix true body wanted to kill them as well. The blood chi of the dragon phoenix true body surged and the sound of a tsunami echoed. His aura rose continuously without any signs of stopping. Scarlet demonic chi rumbled around the dragon phoenix true body. Within the blazing flames, ancient demon kings with shuddering gazes were swiftly formed one after another. Wild bovine demon king. Stone bear demon king. Anaconda demon king. Sanguine ape demon king. Divine steed demon king. Hell tiger demon king. Wind leopard demon king. Desolate ocean dragon king. Sea calming turtle. After the 9 demon kings, a 10th demon king appeared, the golden rock. The 10 demon kings were born from the flames and descended one after another. They were filled with a powerful aura and had sharp claws and fangs. Their demon eyes shone with a violent glint as they circled around the dragon phoenix true body. Roar! Under the protection of the 10 demon kings, the dragon phoenix true body had a torrential aura as he howled into the skies, letting out a roar that could break metal and rocks. The 10 demon kings roared at the same time. The roar resonated and reverberated through the barbarian palace. The entire hall began to shake as dust fell endlessly, as though it was about to collapse the next moment. The young master of the barbarian race sat on the ground with a shocked expression after being struck by a gigantic air current. The two ancestor gods that were charging over were the first to be struck. Their ears hurt from the roar and their minds buzzed. The expressions of the two ancestor gods turned pale. Chapter 1544, Great Light Technique. Chapter 1544, Great Light Technique. Is that a bloodline phenomenon? The pupils of the two ancestor gods constricted. What bloodline phenomenon could produce such a scene? The aura released by the 10 demon kings was practically about to sweep through the 9 heavens and 10 earths. The heavenly god phantoms behind the two ancestor gods turned blurry against the auras of the 10 demon kings and began to sway as though they were about to disperse. After comprehending the divine power of the second ball of light in the dragon phoenix true body's consciousness, the power of the bloodline phenomenon increased exponentially with the addition of another demon king. The old lady's heart skipped a beat as though she recalled something. Suddenly, she retreated and arrived beside the corpse of the firmament sovereign. With a casual scoop, she removed the storage ring on the latter's finger. Kill. The dragon phoenix true body frowned slightly and vaguely realized something. He channeled the 10 demon kings and charged towards the middle-aged ancestor god and the old lady. The 10 demon kings roared and demonic chi surged, tearing the heavens and earth as their chi devoured everything in sight. The old lady's spirit consciousness moved and she took out a jade scroll from the storage bag of Firmament Sovereign. She smiled sinisterly at the dragon phoenix true body and crushed the jade scroll. Buzz! The void trembled. The jade scroll shattered and released an incomparably blinding light that purged away all the darkness in the barbarian palace. Beams of light filled the air with a terrifying power. Not good. That's the divine power of the god race, the great light technique. The two barbarian patriarchs exclaimed and retreated, avoiding the streaks of light. An extremely brilliant method was required to seal a divine power in a jade scroll. The greater divine power sealed in the jade scroll was a life-saving method prepared for the firmament sovereign. However, nobody expected the dragon phoenix true body to attack without warning and release many killing moves consecutively. In 2 to 3 breaths, he killed the firmament sovereign. He did not even have the chance to take out the jade scroll. By sealing the divine power in the jade scroll, a lot of its power would definitely be lost. Even so, it was a greater divine power that was sealed in the jade scroll after all. It was bright and pervasive, filling the entire place. Even if Su Zimo released his extreme speed divine power, he had nowhere to hide. Every single ray of light released by the Great Light Technique was as thin as a hair and was difficult to identify with the naked eye. However, they possessed an extremely terrifying power. The 10 demon kings were enveloped by the Great Light Technique and revealed pained expressions. Their flesh was pierced and fresh blood dripped. Even if the power of that greater divine power was reduced, it was enough to kill a Mahayana patriarch. Even the two barbarian patriarchs did not dare to approach. The physique of the barbarian race was indeed strong and their defense was shocking. However, they were only at the early stage Mahayana realm and had only comprehended some lesser divine powers. They could not defend against the power of a greater divine power. Long Imo, you'll definitely die today. The old lady laughed sinisterly. The moment the Great Light Technique descended, the 10 demon kings were destroyed by the divine power and their bodies were penetrated, riddled with holes. The dragon phoenix true body spat out a mouthful of blood as well as the feathers on his body fell with a pale expression. He had released all his means. If it was just the two ancestor gods, the dragon phoenix true body would definitely be able to kill them here given his combat power. But now, that small jade scroll had changed the situation completely. As though he sensed the danger the dragon phoenix true body was in, the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness circulated within his body. After the 10 demon kings dissipated, they turned into rich demonic chi rapidly. Scarlet demonic chi surged and a blood-colored butterfly appeared behind the dragon phoenix true body in the blink of an eye. The blood butterfly spread its wings with 2 bright moons imprinted on them, glaring at the two ancestor gods like a pair of cold eyes. The blood butterfly was only around 10 feet wide. However, the two ancestor gods felt their scalps tingle and shuddered. What is that? The middle-aged ancestor god mumbled. Suddenly, the wings on the back of the blood butterfly flapped gently. That slight vibration was almost impossible to detect, but it triggered a shocking storm. The surrounding void distorted, changed, collapsed, and caved in. Even the light that spread over distorted as it entered the void. Under the flap of the blood-colored butterfly, a rare darkness appeared around the dragon phoenix true body. The two powers collided in the barbarian palace. A moment later, the light gradually dispersed. The blood-colored butterfly vanished as well. The dragon phoenix true body had a dispirited expression and fell from midair with his eyes closed. Blood was dripping from his body and he was severely injured after being penetrated by the power of light. In truth, if not for the protection of the 10 demon kings and the final defense of the blood-colored butterfly, the great light technique would have been enough to kill the dragon phoenix true body. Although he was a taboo, he was only a half-martial ancestor and had not advanced that final step yet. That step was a world of a difference. The power of a greater divine power was completely beyond what he could endure. He's not dead? The old lady shrieked in disbelief. It's a taboo dragon phoenix after all, and his life force is way too strong. The middle-aged ancestor god said coldly, however, it doesn't matter anymore. The dragon phoenix is severely injured and is like fish on a chopping board that's waiting for us to cut. Young master. Long Tsang and the others shouted and wanted to charge forward. However, a tall figure appeared in front of the dragons and blocked their path. The young master of the barbarian race. Man who, you again. Long Tsang's expression turned cold and killing intent filled his eyes. Brother Long Tsang, calm down. Man who said darkly, what's the difference between advancing now and courting death? That doesn't mean I can just let the god race kill my young master of the dragon race. Long Tsang shouted. Right then, two barbarian patriarchs appeared and stood in front of the dragon phoenix true body, blocking the path of the two ancestor gods. What are you guys doing? The middle-aged ancestor god's expression changed slightly as he questioned loudly. The barbarian patriarch on the left said in a deep voice, fellow Taoist, the barbarian race is partly to blame for the death of the firmament sovereign in our barbarian palace. However, now that the mistake has been made, the barbarian race can't commit a second mistake. The other barbarian patriarch nodded as well. If we allow you guys to kill the taboo dragon phoenix here, how will the barbarian race account to the dragon race? Why? You barbarians want to protect him? The old lady shrieked, don't forget, he was the one who killed our young master first. A life for a life. It's only right, there's nothing you can't explain. This matter is extremely important and the two of us can't make the decision. A barbarian patriarch hesitated. This is a matter between the god and dragon race. The barbarian race doesn't want to be embroiled. Foo-foo. The middle-aged ancestor god sneered, right now, Tianhuang mainland is in chaos and our primordial 6 races have already joined forces, prepared to rule over Tianhuang mainland once more. Does the barbarian race still want to live ignobly in this dilapidated place? Our primordial 9 races suffered immense losses in the primordial war. That was the reason why the human race was able to gain the advantage and seize the opportunity to rise through the ancient war. Humans are a bunch of opportunistic ants. It's time to take back the power that allowed these ants to rule over Tianhuang mainland for so long. Don't tell me that the barbarian race is willing to happily accept the crushing defeat of the ancient war? Doesn't the barbarian race want to reign over Tianhuang mainland once more and rule over the 10,000 races? The repeated questions from the middle-aged ancestor god tempted the two barbarian patriarchs. The 4 patriarchs of the primordial races were in a standoff and no one noticed that the dragon phoenix true body not far away was gradually transforming. Chapter 1545, 6 Tusk Divine Elephant. Chapter 1545, 6 Tusk Divine Elephant. The Great Light Technique was a great divine power of the god race and was extremely powerful. Even with the resistance of the 10 demon kings and the blood-colored butterfly, beams of light seeped into the dragon phoenix true body. Although the light seemed gentle, it possessed a fatal killing intent. Light could bring about life, but it could also cause destruction. The flesh and organs of the dragon phoenix true body gradually deteriorated under the penetration of the light. His flesh withered rapidly and the flames on his body were extinguished. His wings dimmed and gradually decayed. This was a greater divine power after all. Even with the shocking regeneration capabilities of the dragon phoenix true body, it was useless. As though it was sentient, the light surged into the consciousness of the dragon phoenix true body and broke through it without any obstruction. The light wanted to kill the essence spirit of the dragon phoenix true body. However, the light was slightly stunned when it broke through the consciousness. It was truly a sea of consciousness. His massive and pure spirit consciousness materialized into an ocean. It was dark, cold and deep. In that ocean, there was a gigantic spirit turtle. A mighty and sharp cry sounded from the firmaments. A golden rock soared through the 9 heavens and spread its wings, covering thousands of kilometers instantly. The gaze of the golden rock was sharp as it circled in the skies, glaring at the ball of light that had entered his consciousness. In the middle of his consciousness hovered 2 fist-sized balls of light that revolved around the scarlet-haired essence spirit with a terrifying aura. It was unknown what they were nurturing. The light of the great light technique gathered rapidly and formed a bedazzling spear in the blink of an eye, piercing towards the scarlet-haired essence spirit. Whoosh! The spear of light tore through the air with an ear-piercing sound. The spear of light contained the power of divine powers, and even the flesh of the dragon phoenix true body could not defend against it. The scarlet-haired essence spirit would definitely die if it was struck. The spirit turtle and the consciousness floated in silence. The golden rock soared above the firmaments and did not act rashly. The 2 demon kings merely glared at the spear with cold gazes. Just as the spear was about to strike the scarlet-haired essence spirit, a ball of light around him floated over and blocked it. Poof! It was unknown whether the power of the spear of light was too strong or if the ball of light was too weak. The moment the spear of light descended, the ball of light was pierced. Time seemed to have stopped. Even the soaring golden rock froze in midair. The next moment, the earth and mountains shook. An extremely terrifying aura burst forth from the ball of light as a massive demon beast descended with an ancient aura. It was a divine elephant. The legendary divine elephant was extremely strong and could topple mountains with a single motion. A single sweep of its trunk could sweep away all the stars in the skies. Every single inch of flesh on the gigantic body of the divine elephant possessed an explosive power. The most striking thing was the elephant's tusks on both sides of its trunk. An ordinary divine elephant only had a pair of elephant tusks. However, this divine elephant had 3 pairs, 6 of them. 6 jade-white ivory tusks grew on both sides of its cheeks. They were sharp and possessed divinity, as though they could penetrate everything. The 11th demon king was born. The 6-tusked divine elephant. Roar! The 6-tusked divine elephant swung its trunk and roared into the skies, letting out a resounding and furious roar as its 6 tusks emanated a terrifying aura. The ground beneath the feet of the 6-tusked divine elephant materialized and expanded continuously. Initially, there was only the desolate ocean condensed by the spirit consciousness in the dragon phoenix true body's consciousness. There was a spirit turtle floating in the desolate ocean. A gigantic rock spread its wings in the skies. But now, the descent of the 6-tusked divine elephant caused a miracle and land appeared one piece after another. Wild bovine demon king, stone bear demon king, anaconda demon king, sanguine ape demon king. With the pieces of land, the demon kings that did not appear earlier on descended and took form. 11 demon kings roared in the consciousness of the dragon phoenix true body with a terrifying might and torrential demonic chi. The moment the spear of light pierced the ball of light and the 6-tusked divine elephant descended, it was shattered by the divine elephant's trunk and dissipated into the world. The scarlet-haired essence spirit woke up and met the gaze of the 6-tusked divine elephant. The moment their gazes met, the mind of the dragon phoenix true body rumbled and a mysterious divine power comprehension surged into his mind. There were 4 divine powers at the end of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. A 3rd divine power had appeared. Among the four divine powers, the first two focused on assisting and protecting one's life. For example, the spirit turtle shield possessed an absolutely terrifying defense. At the half-martial ancestor realm, the dragon phoenix true body even blocked the attacks of four patriarchs with the spirit turtle shield. The extreme speed divine power of the golden rock was absolute speed. With the extreme speed divine power, the dragon phoenix true body could move freely without a trace against the combined forces of four patriarchs of the primordial races. However, the killing power of the two divine powers were not strong and did not have any offensive capabilities. The third divine power awakened by the dragon phoenix true body was absolute power. The six-tusked divine elephant was the god of the land in the vast wilderness. On land, even the desolate ocean dragon king had to retreat. No living being could match it in terms of strength. The six-tusked divine elephant could sweep through everything on land. The third divine power, the six-tusked divine strength. Once that divine power was awakened, one's power would increase exponentially. If one could cultivate 2 elephant tusks, his strength would double. The increase in strength was not purely due to physique. It was the power of bloodline, essence spirit, dermic powers and even divine powers. All his strength would double. If one could cultivate 4 divine elephant tusks, his strength would increase by 4 times. At its peak, one's strength could reach a maximum of 6 times. This was a divine power technique that could truly break through the shackles of a cultivation realm. After comprehending the six-tusked divine strength, a terrifying aura burst forth from the dragon phoenix true body instantly. An incomparably strong divine power descended and surged into the dragon phoenix true body, engulfing his organs, bones and bloodline. Almost in the blink of an eye, the power of light that remained in the dragon phoenix true body was purged. Under the impact of the divine power, the life force of the dragon phoenix true body recovered at a visible speed. His shriveled flesh expanded rapidly and was filled with vitality. His already dim wings shone with a scarlet glow as well. Before long, the dragon phoenix flame burned once more. Under the refinement of the divine power, the dragon phoenix true body's body, bloodline and even essence spirit transformed once more and became even stronger. The aura of the dragon phoenix true body rose rapidly. Actually, under normal circumstances, the dragon phoenix true body could only comprehend a third divine power after entering the Mahayana realm. However, due to the impact of a greater divine power such as the Great Light technique in the consciousness of the dragon phoenix true body, the ball of light was shattered in advance and the third divine power descended. Comprehending that divine power brought about even greater changes. The dragon phoenix true body could truly sense the Mahayana realm. He had already touched the barrier of the Mahayana realm. As long as the dragon phoenix true body wanted to, he could make use of the divine power to break through the barrier before him. However, the dragon phoenix true body remained rational and did not do that. This was the barbarian palace. There were 2 ancestor gods opposite him. It was inevitable that something would happen if he chose to break through here. Chapter 1546, Complete Suppression. Chapter 1546, Complete Suppression. The expressions of the 2 barbarian patriarchs changed when they sensed the aura fluctuation behind them. What happened? The 2 barbarian patriarchs turned over instinctively. Before they could figure out what was going on, they felt a scorching aura surge towards them as a gigantic figure swayed. The next moment, the massive bodies of the 2 barbarian patriarchs were lifted uncontrollably. Long Tsang's group and the rest of the barbarian race raised their heads instinctively and looked at everything with agape mouths. In the void, a dragon phoenix blazing with scarlet flames flapped his wings and hovered in midair. Each of his claws grabbed a barbarian patriarch and his aura was torrential. Those were patriarchs of the primordial races. However, against the claws of the dragon phoenix true body, they were lifted like 2 chickens. The dragon phoenix claws were right above the heads of the 2 barbarian patriarchs. The 2 barbarian patriarchs were enraged and wanted to break free. However, the moment they moved, they felt a sharp pain on their scalps, as though warm liquid was flowing down their cheeks. They were bleeding. The barbarian race had the strongest physique. Even the dermic treasures of the god race might not be able to hurt the two barbarian patriarchs if they released their barbarian strength. But now, the heads of the two barbarian patriarchs were pierced by the dragon phoenix claws. The two barbarian patriarchs had pale faces and shocked expressions, not daring to move. They could clearly sense that if they continued struggling, the dragon phoenix true body would be able to pierce their heads with a single thought from its spirit consciousness and kill their essence spirits directly. At that time, it would be useless even if they had blood rebirth. What happened to Long Imo? Even though he hasn't advanced to the Mahayana realm, he seems to be even stronger and more terrifying than before. Would Long Imo really kill us if he goes crazy? The two barbarian patriarchs were alarmed and scared as their imaginations ran wild. Right then, the dragon phoenix true body flung the two barbarian patriarchs to the back casually. The figures of the two barbarian patriarchs were like two mountains that transformed into two black shadows that smashed against the wall of the barbarian palace. Snap! The boulders on the wall shattered. The two barbarian patriarchs gasped and winced in pain as they slid down the wall slowly. Patriarchs! The young master of the barbarian race exclaimed as he rushed forward hurriedly to help the two barbarian patriarchs up. It's fine, it's fine. Although the two barbarian patriarchs were tossed against the wall, a look of joy from surviving a calamity flashed through their eyes. What's wrong with the young master? Long Shi was worried. Don't worry, the young master is still rational. Long Tsang said in a deep voice, the reason why the young master did not kill the two barbarian patriarchs should be because they stood out and blocked the two ancestor gods earlier on. However, because the two barbarian patriarchs joined forces with the two ancestor gods at the start, our young master slammed them against the wall as a small punishment. Just as Long Tsang was whispering to the dragons, a change happened on the battlefield. The dragon phoenix true body had a cold expression and charged towards the two ancestor gods unhurriedly. I thought that you had already broken through to the ancestor realm. So, you're still only a half-martial ancestor. The middle-aged ancestor god swept his spirit consciousness and could not help but heave a sigh of relief when he sensed the cultivation realm of the dragon phoenix true body. He composed himself and sneered. The old lady said coldly, if you're a half-martial ancestor, you'll definitely die today. Kill. The two ancestor gods hollered and charged towards the dragon phoenix true body. The divine powers of the two ancestor gods surged and released divine lights. The heavenly god phantom emitted an endless might that intensified the auras of the two ancestor gods. The dragon phoenix true body's gaze was burning. Suddenly, a gigantic divine elephant appeared behind him and swung its trunk, letting out a deafening roar at the two ancestor gods. Roar! The divine elephant cried and tore through the void. As though they were shocked, the heavenly god phantoms behind the two ancestor gods trembled slightly and revealed fearful expressions. Under the might of the divine elephant and its aura, the two heavenly god phantoms dissipated into emptiness. This scene caused an uproar. What did that mean? The divine powers released by the two ancestor gods were destroyed by the divine elephant? The six-tusked divine elephant descended and the world shook. Of course, there were only two elephant tusks on the six-tusked divine elephant's cheeks. After all, the dragon phoenix true body had just awakened this divine power and it was already his limit to cultivate two elephant tusks. Even so, the two elephant tusks were strong enough. This meant that the bloodline, physique, essence spirit, dermic powers, divine powers and all other powers of the dragon phoenix true body would double. What sort of an unimaginable concept was twice his strength? When cultivated to its limits, the title manual left behind by the Saber Emperor merely increased his strength by 90% and was less than twice. However, the power of the dragon phoenix true body doubled the moment he awakened the divine power of six-tusked divine strength. The dragon phoenix true body advanced and extended his gigantic, menacing claws towards the middle-aged ancestor god. 5 cracks appeared in the void with that slash. The middle-aged ancestor god was shocked but he tried his best to compose himself. With a deep roar, he channeled his blood chi and swung the gigantic sword in his hands towards the dragon phoenix claw. Clang! The gigantic sword struck the dragon phoenix claw and the sound of metal clashing echoed with sparks. Immediately after, his eyes widened. He felt a torrential force crush down along the dragon phoenix claw. His dermic treasure was like a toy against the dragon phoenix claw. In the face of that power, he was as insignificant as an ant. Shing! The dragon phoenix claw tore the middle-aged ancestor god apart as fresh blood splattered. His limbs were broken and his organs were splattered all over the ground with a torrential blood stench. Beside the dragon phoenix true body, the old lady swung her dragon head walking stick. The moment she charged forward, a large scarlet shadow appeared before her. Poof! The old lady's body was whipped into a blood mist by the casual sway of the dragon phoenix true body's tail. Complete suppression. Both ancestor gods reacted extremely quickly and escaped with their essence spirits right away. Before long, the middle-aged ancestor god used blood rebirth to reconstruct a new body and recovered with a pale expression. Blood rebirth was not omnipotent. Every single blood rebirth took a huge toll on the essence spirit. Given the power of his essence spirit, the middle-aged ancestor god could only release 3 blood rebirths at most. By the 4th time, his essence spirit would be exhausted and he would not be able to form a physical body even if he wanted to. The speed of the old lady's body formation had clearly slowed down. She was in her twilight years to begin with and her lifespan was reduced by quite a bit by Baron in the beginning. Earlier on, her body exploded and her life force deteriorated rapidly after another huge battle. The old lady had almost exhausted the power of her essence spirit for this blood rebirth. Although the old lady was reborn, she seemed to have aged for 1,000 years in this short period of time. She had brown hair and the wrinkles on her face were even deeper, emanating an aura of decay. Chapter 1547, Total Annihilation. Chapter 1547, Total Annihilation. Even though the middle-aged ancestor god tried his best to control himself, his eyes could not help but reveal a hint of shock. What sort of methods are those? The middle-aged ancestor god gulped and asked loudly, "How did your strength increase so much in such a short period of time?" That's impossible. Even though he witnessed and experienced it personally, the middle-aged ancestor god was still unwilling to believe it. Even a lesser divine power would not be able to bring about such a shocking transformation. Do you want to know? The dragon phoenix true body had an indifferent expression as he looked at the 2 ancestor gods without any emotions in his eyes. He said coldly, "Go to hell and ask. There are countless souls of innocent living beings from the primordial war waiting for you there." In the primordial era, the god race invaded and provoked the 3 taboos to fight against one another intentionally, triggering the unprecedentedly tragic primordial war. In that war, countless living beings and races perished. The god race was the culprit. Only the 2 ancestor gods could understand the meaning behind Su Zimo's words. "What are you talking about? I don't understand." The middle-aged ancestor god averted his gaze and forced a smile. That was a secret of the primordial era that had been buried in time. Even within the god race, only patriarchs were qualified to know about it, let alone the other races. The middle-aged ancestor god did not believe that the dragon phoenix true body could know those secrets. Everyone from the barbarian race frowned slightly. They could vaguely tell that the dragon phoenix true body seemed to be implying something, but the many barbarians were still confused. Long ago. A barbarian patriarch took a deep breath and stood out, saying in a deep voice, "Since things have come to this, you can't continue with your wrongdoings and go for the kill." The barbarian race felt terrible being sandwiched between the dragon and god race. Because the god and dragon race arrived at the same time, the barbarian race was initially contemplating how they should deal with the 2 races and obtain the greatest benefits. However, they did not expect the dragon phoenix true body to be so decisive to kill and slaughter the firmament sovereign right away. With that, their plans were completely spoiled. The current situation was completely out of the control of the barbarian race. Right now, the barbarian race only wanted to resolve this matter as soon as possible and get out of it. They could not let the two ancestor gods kill the dragon phoenix true body. However, they could not let the dragon phoenix true body kill the remaining two ancestor gods either. The barbarian race wanted to gain from both sides, but they did not expect to land in a predicament instead. The young master of the barbarian race stood out as well and said with a bitter smile, "Brother Long Mo, the barbarian race doesn't want any gifts anymore. I truly can't accept this huge gift of yours. It's fine if you don't want this huge gift." The dragon phoenix true body had a cold gaze and said firmly, "However, I must kill the two of them." Actually, the moment he entered the barbarian palace and saw the god race, the dragon phoenix true body had already triggered his killing intent. The so-called gift was naturally just an excuse. By killing the god race, he could firstly force the barbarian race into making a decision. Secondly, it was because of the truth behind the primordial war. The dragon phoenix true body felt indignant. He was indignant for Night Spirit. He was indignant for the countless living beings and destroyed races that died in the primordial war. The moment he said that, the dragon phoenix true body charged forward once more and a tremendous might descended. A wild wind howled, sweeping up scorching flames that surged over. "Long Mo, you're way too arrogant. This is the barbarian race, not your Dragon Bone Valley." The two barbarian patriarchs had enraged expressions as they slapped their storage bags and withdrew their dermic treasures. With a loud shout, they charged forward. They must not let the two ancestor gods die in the barbarian palace either. Otherwise, the barbarian race would have no way back or any choices remaining. A barbarian patriarch wielded a gigantic stone hammer and smashed it towards the dragon phoenix true body. The dermic treasure of the other barbarian patriarch was a gigantic axe that could split the skies and was also made from an unknown rock. Although the craftsmanship of the two dermic treasures was crude, the power released by the stone hammer and axe was extremely terrifying. The stone hammer descended with a ton of weight. Only the body of the barbarian race could wield such a dermic treasure with ease. The stone axe cleaved down and slashed towards the dragon phoenix true body with the momentum to split the world apart. Scram! The dragon phoenix true body flapped his wings and hollered coldly. Bang! Bang! The phoenix's tail and wings struck the stone hammer and gigantic axe respectively, sending the two dermic treasures flying. The two barbarian patriarchs shuddered as well. The moment they charged forward, they were sent flying back at an even faster speed and smashed against the wall of the barbarian palace. Boom! Boom! This time round, the impact on the two barbarian patriarchs was even greater. They smashed the boulders on the wall of the barbarian palace and created human-shaped holes. Debris fell and dust billowed as the two barbarian patriarchs were casually thrown out of the barbarian palace by the dragon phoenix true body. The young master of the barbarian race had just taken a step forward and was prepared to join forces with the two patriarchs when he saw that. Without a trace, he gulped and could not help but retract the leg he had stepped forward with. The dragon phoenix true body descended and its 5 claws covered the skies, sealing the old lady's escape path without any gaps. The old lady shrieked with a despairing expression, "Long Mo, the god race will definitely take revenge for me." The old lady's body was torn by the dragon phoenix claw once more. However, this time round, the old lady's essence spirit was defeated and she could no longer use blood rebirth. The speed of the essence spirit became incomparably sluggish as well. In the blink of an eye, it was torn apart by the dragon phoenix claws and died. When he saw that, the middle-aged ancestor god's face turned pale as he was scared out of his wits. He no longer had the guts and courage to fight the dragon phoenix true body again. The middle-aged ancestor god channeled his blood chi and transformed into a divine light, escaping out of the barbarian palace. However, his speed was far inferior to the dragon phoenix true body. The middle-aged ancestor god did not manage to escape far before the dragon phoenix true body caught up to him and chomped down, devouring his entire body. The essence spirit of the middle-aged ancestor god left his body hurriedly and escaped, fleeing from the dragon phoenix true body's mouth by a hair's breadth. The body of the middle-aged ancestor god was torn by a single bite of the dragon phoenix true body. He was devoured whole without a single drop of blood flowing out. The middle-aged ancestor god channeled his essence spirit and wanted to use blood rebirth. However, he did not even have a single drop of bloodline left. Swoosh! The wings of the dragon phoenix true body closed, forming a gigantic cage of flames that trapped the middle-aged ancestor god within and burned with raging fire. Ah! 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 The essence spirit of the middle-aged ancestor god let out tragic cries in the flames. Within a few breaths, he was burned to ashes by the flames of the dragon phoenix true body. Clang! The dragon phoenix true body spat out the storage ring of the middle-aged ancestor god and it fell to the ground. The young master of the barbarian race as well as Long Tsang and the others were dumbfounded. Boom! Boom! Outside the barbarian palace, the two barbarian patriarchs snapped out of their stupor and broke free from the rubble. They charged back with furious expressions. The moment they entered the barbarian palace, they stopped in their tracks and looked at everything before them in a daze. Everything was over. Including the young master and 3 ancestor gods, a total of 6 god race beings were annihilated with no survivors. Chapter 1548, Decision of the Barbarian Race. Chapter 1548, Decision of the Barbarian Race. In the depths of the great boulder forest, 2 burly men sat opposite one another with a few jars of strong wine on the table, filling the air with the fragrance of wine. One of them was more than 30 feet tall. Even though he was in a lotus position, he was close to 20 feet tall and looked sturdy like a mountain. The burly man's gaze was dignified. He was the barbarian clan leader, Man Fong. The person opposite the burly man had scarlet hair that burned like flames. He had a rough appearance and an unshaved beard, but he exuded a malevolent aura. What? Suddenly, Man Fong threw the wine jar on the ground and slammed the table. He glared at the scarlet-haired burly man opposite him with a shocked expression and asked, "Long Ran, was what you said true?" The scarlet-haired burly man was the red-headed ghost of the dragon race. The red-headed ghost nodded. Absolutely. Man Fong was bewildered and pondered for a moment before frowning. Long Ran, on account of our relationship, I can turn a blind eye to whatever nonsense your cub of the dragon race outside creates. However, you can't spout nonsense like that. Long Ran rolled his eyes. Barbarian, we've been through life and death together. How can I lie to you about something like this? After pondering for a long time, Man Fong nodded. I definitely believe you. However, the problem is how to make the other patriarchs of the barbarian race believe you. The decision of the barbarian race concerns their future. Although I'm the clan leader, I can't make the decision. The red-headed ghost waved it off. It's fine, I have evidence. Man Fang's eyes lit up, but he was skeptical. After all, it's been so long since the primordial war. What evidence can you have? The evidence is not with me. However, everything will be revealed at the 10,000 race meet. The red-headed ghost said. Man Fong said in a deep voice, all right. I believe you and can even let the barbarian race take part in the 10,000 race meet. However, before this matter is made clear, I can't guarantee that the barbarian race will definitely join forces with the dragon race. No problem. The red-headed ghost said confidently, the truth will naturally be revealed at the 10,000 race meet. After a brief pause, he turned around and his gaze seemed to cross the voids to land in the barbarian palace. Suddenly, he said, but now, you've got to arrange a secret chamber for Long Mo. He's about to break through. Also, let me remind you that the cub you're referring to is a taboo dragon phoenix. He can kill early-stage Mahayana patriarchs at the half-martial ancestor realm. Once he enters the Mahayana realm and becomes a patriarch, he'll be on the same level as us. Don't speak without restraint. Man Fong grumbled, fine, got it. You're the most protective of him. If I didn't give you face, Do you think he would be able to behave so arrogantly in the territory of the barbarian race? He doesn't know that I'm here this time round. You don't have to tell him either. As though he recalled something from the past, a look of sadness flashed through the red-headed ghost's eyes as he murmured, I was a little afraid after that incident. Man Feng was silent and merely patted the red-headed ghost on the shoulder as a form of comfort. He knew that the red-headed ghost thought of his child. 10,000 years ago, it was because of the death of the red-headed ghost's child that he went into a complete frenzy and massacred everyone, creating a catastrophe. The red-headed ghost had long regarded Su Zimo as his child. He did not wish for the tragedy of the past to repeat itself on Su Zimo. Therefore, this time round, he followed behind the dragon phoenix true body and the others secretly to protect them. He even arrived in the barbarian race a step earlier and sought out the barbarian clan leader to explain the pros and cons. Otherwise, the barbarian race would have been alarmed a long time ago after such a huge commotion in the barbarian palace. Why else would no barbarian patriarchs appear even after such a long time? In the barbarian palace, the young master of the barbarian race and two barbarian patriarchs looked at the dilapidated barbarian palace. The ground was filled with blood and the corpses of the god race. Their expressions were terrible and they were enraged. The young master of the barbarian race clenched his fists and grit his teeth. Long Mo, this is the barbarian race. Aren't you way too domineering by starting a massacre in the barbarian race? Long Mo. A barbarian patriarch hollered as well, you're so arrogant and bloodthirsty and you're trying to force the barbarian race to submit to your demands. Let me tell you, the barbarian race will definitely not join forces with you. It's not that I'm bloodthirsty, it's that the god race deserves to be killed. The dragon phoenix true body said indifferently. Humph, what a joke. The other barbarian patriarch sneered, the barbarian race will report today's matter to the god race as it is. Leave, the barbarian race does not welcome you. The dragon phoenix true body was silent. The outcome today was definitely not what he wanted. He was indignant. However, he knew in his heart that if he revealed the truth of the primordial war now, he would only attract the ridicule of the barbarian race and they would not believe him. After all, the truth was way too terrifying. It had completely overturned everyone's understanding. The barbarian race would definitely be prejudiced and deem it his excuse to frame the god race after killing them. However, the dragon phoenix true body was indignant to leave the barbarian race just like that. On the other hand, Longsong and the others did not think that way. The dragon phoenix true body caused a huge ruckus in the barbarian palace and killed the firmament sovereign. They couldn't be gladder than to be able to leave unscathed. Young master, don't think about it. Let's leave this place first. Longsong sent a voice transmission secretly. We'll rethink the matter of joining forces with the barbarian race. We can't linger here. Master, let's hurry and leave. Solitary Cloud urged as well. The dragons were anxious, afraid that the barbarian race would renege on their words. Hold on. Suddenly, the young master of the barbarian race shouted. It's over. Longsong and the others felt their hearts skip a beat and realized that the situation was bad. The expression of the young master of the barbarian race was a little strange. Unlike what Longsong and the others expected, he did not look angry and murderous. Instead, he looked embarrassed. Cough, cough. He coughed gently and arrived before the dragon phoenix true body before cupping his fists. Well. Brother Long Mo, please forgive me for my rudeness earlier on. A look of surprise flashed through the eyes of the dragon phoenix true body. Longsong and the others were dumbfounded. What was going on? In just a short while, the attitude of the barbarian race towards them had reversed drastically. The first reaction of the dragons was that the barbarian race was trying to trick them. However, on second thought, the barbarian race had always been open and honest with clear distinction between gratitude and hatred. They never hid anything from anyone. They would definitely not be acting as such if they truly wanted to lay the blame on them. However, the dragons were puzzled as to what happened. The young master of the barbarian race made an inviting gesture. Brother Long Mo, please enter. The dragon phoenix true body pondered for a moment before shifting his gaze to the two barbarian patriarchs. He said hesitantly, "That's not good, right? These two barbarian seniors just berated me that the barbarian race doesn't welcome me." The two barbarian patriarchs blushed and wanted to find holes to hide in. Both of them gritted their teeth in hatred. They had both lived for so long, how could they not tell that the dragon phoenix true body was repeating what they said intentionally? The two barbarian patriarchs walked over slowly and cupped their fists towards the dragon phoenix true body, saying embarrassedly, "Please forgive us, young master of the dragon race. Our barbarian race is straightforward and reckless. Don't take it to heart." "Well said, well said." The dragon phoenix true body smiled gently. "You're making things sound too serious, seniors." The young master of the barbarian race walked over and hugged the shoulder of the dragon phoenix true body, saying with a smile, "Brother Long Mo, let's drink to our heart's content and forget about today's matter. When the time comes, we'll head to the 10,000 race meet together." Chapter 1549, Gathering of the 10,000 Races. Chapter 1549, Gathering of the 10,000 Races. Kunlun Ruins, Ling Long's secret ground. After 100 years, Su Zimo had returned here once more. Su Zimo had benefited immensely from his cultivation over the years. He had already entered the half-martial ancestor realm and comprehended a trace of divine power. However, he still could not break through. Although nothing changed in the Ling Long's secret ground, Su Zimo had one less person by his side. Nian Qi was gone. He looked at the secret ground and could not help but recall the scene of him, extreme fire and Nian Qi entering this place. Although it happened 100 years ago, it felt like yesterday. "Zimo, don't worry. Nian Qi is very smart, she'll be fine." Extreme fire consoled at the side. Night Spirit reverted to the form of a black-robed youth and followed behind Su Zimo in silence. "What about the treasures here?" Extreme Fire asked with a frown as the three of them arrived at the secret chamber in the Ling Long's secret ground and looked at the many treasures left behind by Fairy Ling Long. Su Zimo pondered for a moment. "Let's leave them here. These treasures are the hope left behind by Fairy Ling Long for the human race." However, the human race won the ancient war. But now that Tianhuang mainland is in chaos, the situation of the human race is even more dangerous than in the ancient era. There are dangers both inside and outside. This might be the last path of retreat for the human race. Extreme Fire nodded. The two of them arrived at the wall where Fairy Ling Long left her words and bowed once more before turning to leave the secret ground. Compared to 100 years ago, Su Zimo and the other two were much stronger. The three of them left the Ling Long's secret ground and entered the outer perimeter of the Kunlun ruins. As they advanced, almost all the malevolent ghosts and spirits fled far away and did not dare to approach them. The three of them advanced and returned to Tianhuang mainland in less than half a day. Su Zimo gazed in the direction of the middle continent and murmured softly, 10,000 race meet, here I come. Middle continent, heaven-expanding mountain range. The mountain range was filled with thick fog all year round. However, during this period of time, as though it was controlled, the fog dispersed entirely. Enigma Palace. Throughout history, it was the most mysterious and powerful existence in the cultivation world, the sacred ground of the human race. Ever since the ancient era, the world had changed. Even for the super sects, many of them rose and were destroyed with different ones taking over endlessly. Enigma Palace was the only one that stood strong. There were no flames of war that affected the territory of Enigma Palace. Furthermore, Enigma Palace was the most mysterious existence in the cultivation world. Nobody knew what was inside Enigma Palace. Apart from cultivators of Enigma Palace, almost no outsiders could enter Enigma Palace to catch a glimpse of its true appearance. But now that Enigma Palace was hosting the 10,000 race meet, the mysterious veil of Enigma Palace was removed completely. Over the past few days, countless sects, factions, cultivators and races had descended in Enigma Palace. The 10,000 race meet encompassed everything. It did not matter if they were from major sects, minor sects, itinerant cultivators, aristocratic families, anacondas, snakes or any other variant beast of the demon race. As long as their cultivation realms were high enough, they could come if they wanted to take part in the 10,000 race meet. In the past few days, countless sects, factions and powerful living beings had arrived at the heaven-expanding mountain range and entered Enigma Palace. Many experts were gathered. In fact, even some itinerant cultivators who were in seclusion appeared. Nobody was going to miss this grand meet. Everyone knew that this was not just a mere meet. There was a high chance that this gathering would determine the future of Tianhuang mainland, including the fates of the 10,000 races. Dao palaces were scattered all over Enigma Palace in mysterious locations that seemed to vaguely correspond to the stars in the firmaments. Spirit peaks stood with green water swirling around them as a vast sea of clouds floated around them. Amidst the noise, waterfalls could be seen pouring down from the heavens, creating ripples as a rainbow crossed two peaks. In the lake beneath the waterfalls, water shimmered as fat, beautiful fishes leaped from time to time. Everything was like paradise. Although the 10,000 race meet would only start a few days later, many cultivators of different races had already arrived in Enigma Palace and it was bustling. Dong! Right then, a distant bell sounded from Enigma Palace. Is it because some big shot has arrived? Look, over there. Many cultivators and living beings turned towards the entrance of Enigma Palace. The bell of Enigma Palace would only ring when a noble figure descended. At that time, someone of high status from Enigma Palace would head over to welcome the guest as well. Far away, a group of cultivators arrived on Starlight. There were hundreds of them and the weakest were Dharma-characteristic Dao lords. Among them, there were even some conjoint body mighty figures. Brilliant cultivators could even sense the auras of half-martial ancestors within. The leader had a Dao crown on his head and his robes were engraved with many stars that shone faintly. It's the sect master of Heavenly Dipper sect. To think that the sect master would arrive personally for the 10,000 race meet. You don't know about that, do you? Over the past few days, the super sects have been led by the sect masters. This meet is way too important. Many cultivators gathered and discussed softly. Many cultivators of Enigma Palace appeared and welcomed the group. Their leader was the Palace Lord of Enigma Palace, half-martial ancestor Qingzhe. Did you see that? 100 years ago, Desolate Martial wreaked havoc in Enigma Palace and half-martial ancestor Qingzhe was punished to reflect on his mistakes. I heard that he was only released recently. Speaking of Desolate Martial, it's strange. There's been no news of him all these years. I reckon that Desolate Martial is most likely dead. Even if he's not dead, he won't dare to appear. The Blood Vine race has a killing badge on Desolate Martial and he's being hunted by the other 5 primordial races. Unless he's tired of living, he wouldn't dare to appear at a time like this. As the 10,000 race meet approached, the number of sects and factions that arrived at Enigma Palace increased. Many of the 108 upper sects were destroyed by the primordial 6 races and the remaining dozens arrived. On the day of the 10,000 race meet, the 8 immortal sects, 7 fiend sects, 6 Buddhist monasteries, 5 heretical doctrines, 4 unorthodox groups and 3 ancient aristocratic families arrived. Of the 5 heretical doctrines, Gu's sect was already destroyed. However, there were still a few Gu masters who represented Gu's sect. To the pity of countless cultivators, Clear Wind Temple of the 9 immortal sects and Clear Heart Nunnery of the 6 Buddhist monasteries were destroyed. No cultivators from them arrived. There were many grand demons from the 8 demon regions as well. Some demons turned into fiend demons that looked no different from humans. However, some of the demons were in their true forms and their demonic chi surged, making them stand out in the crowd. A grand event as such gathered almost all the factions of Tianhuang mainland and was rare even in the ancient era. Enigma Palace was the only one with such influence. They were also the only one with the guts to summon the 10,000 races. Enigma Palace was vast and could accommodate experts of the 10,000 races with ease. However, none of the primordial 9 races appeared on the official day of the 10,000 race meet. The sect masters and palace lords of the major sects and factions waited patiently with unchanged expressions. They knew in their hearts that the purpose of this 10,000 race meet was to negotiate with the primordial races. If the primordial races did not take part, there would be no meaning to the 10,000 race meet. Chapter 1550, Savage Rakshasas. Chapter 1550, Savage Rakshasas. The 10,000 races were all gathered at Enigma Palace. After a long wait from morning till noon, none of the primordial races appeared. Dong! Finally, the bell of Enigma Palace sounded. Many cultivators were shocked. The palace lord of Enigma Palace led his disciples forward hurriedly. Not far away, a group of cultivators of different races arrived. However, none of them were from the primordial races. The palace lord of Enigma Palace was slightly stunned and reacted extremely quickly. He cupped his fists. So, it's the arrival of Penglai Island. Welcome. Please enter. This group of people were cultivators of Penglai Island. Their leader was the island master of Penglai Island. Behind the island master of Penglai Island was a young man with a dark expression. A long saber hung on his waist and his gaze was cold. He was the new young master of Penglai Island. After everyone from Penglai Island arrived, the 10,000 races continued to wait. Under normal circumstances, the 10,000 race meet should be held today. However, nobody from the primordial 9 races showed up. As such, there was no other choice but to push back the 10,000 race meet. Although no one said it, the living beings of the 10,000 races had a tacit understanding. A few figures stood among the group of demons. One of them was tall and his hands were slumped naturally, almost reaching his knees. There was an occasional flash of blood in his eyes. It was Monkey who was in human form. Beside Monkey was the crude spirit tiger. Beside the spirit tiger was a beautiful woman with long, slender legs, Ching Ching. On the other side of Monkey were the golden lion and little fox. Over the years, Monkey and the other siblings had roamed Tianhuang mainland. Apart from the 3 major sea regions of the 8 demon regions, they roamed the other 5 demon regions. The 5 siblings were already at the realm of grand demons. Brother Monkey, do you think First is still alive? The spirit tiger asked softly. When she heard that, the little fox pouted and her eyes reddened. Monkey glared at the spirit tiger. What nonsense are you talking about? First is definitely alive. I reckon that he'll definitely appear on such an occasion. Don't scare little fox. Ching Ching reached out and pinched the fat on the spirit tiger's body as well. In pain, the spirit tiger stuck out his tongue at little fox and made a funny face. It was only then that little fox broke into a smile through her tears. Thereafter, as though she recalled something, she retracted her smile and sighed gently. The 10,000 races continued waiting in Enigma Palace. Before the primordial 9 races appeared, no sect or faction from the 10,000 races dared to leave in advance. The sect masters and palace lords of the human super sects exchanged glances. Although they were silent and expressionless, they understood everything clear as day. It was clear that the primordial races did this on purpose. At dusk, the skies gradually darkened. The crowd was getting restless and the patience of many cultivators and living beings were running out. Aren't the primordial races way too cocky? That's right. The 10,000 races are gathered and we are just waiting for the primordial 9 races. Grunting sounded from the crowd. Dong! Right then, the bell sounded. Dark clouds covered the distant horizon and surged with a terrifying aura. When they approached, many cultivators finally saw what was going on and their expressions changed slightly as fear flashed through their eyes. The rumbling dark clouds were formed by a group of Rakshasa with green faces and bared fangs. Many Rakshasas were pitch black and flapped their gigantic wings. Every single one of them was incomparably ugly with ferocious gazes as they circled in midair. From afar, they looked like dark clouds. When the dark clouds arrived above Enigma Palace, many Rakshasa clansmen dispersed. A beautiful and slender figure walked out from the dark clouds. Among the many ugly and menacing Rakshasas, a beautiful and flawless woman walked over slowly. She wore tight armor that accentuated her curvy figure perfectly. Ah! The appearance of the beautiful woman attracted exclamations. It felt like a warm ray of sunlight shining through the dark clouds and illuminating everyone's hearts. Is that the legendary Rakshasa? The Rakshasa race sure is strange. Although the other Rakshasas are so ugly, the women of the Rakshasa race are so beautiful. A wave of praises sounded from the crowd. Suddenly, a Rakshasa behind Rakshasa charged into the crowd with a cold expression and revealed killing intent in a flash. The crowd was sliced into two by the wings of the Rakshasa. Fresh blood gushed out. Instantly, more than 10 cultivators were torn apart. The 10,000 races were in an uproar. Nobody expected that the Rakshasa race of the primordial 9 races would start a massacre and kill more than 10 cultivators the moment they appeared. The cultivators nearby were shocked and retreated. The Rakshasa said coldly, "Human ant, how dare you speak ill of our race? You deserve to die." The cultivators were silent. Although some cultivators were enraged, they did not dare to say anything. Although merely 4 cultivators spoke earlier on, the Rakshasa race killed more than 10 cultivators the moment they attacked. The Rakshasa race truly did not take the human cultivators seriously. Killing more than 10 cultivators was as simple as crushing a few ants. The palace lord of Enigma Palace swept his gaze and his expression darkened. However, he still walked forward and greeted with cupped fists. "Fellow Taoists of the Rakshasa race, please enter." Rakshasa walked in with a cold expression. Hundreds of green-faced Rakshasa with bared fangs followed behind Rakshasa. Suddenly, a Rakshasa attacked once more and charged in the direction of Overlord Palace. He wielded 2 curved sabers and killed 2 Overlord Palace cultivators on the spot. The 2 cultivators of Overlord Palace were completely unprepared and watched with widened eyes in confusion even till their deaths. The Palace Lord of Overlord Palace gripped his fists tightly and took a deep breath, asking in a deep voice, "Fellow Taoist of the Rakshasa race, what do you mean by that?" He. The Rakshasa sneered, "I heard them complaining that we were late. Anyone who complains about the Rakshasa race has to die as well." He. Many Rakshasa clansmen grinned and bared their grisly red fangs, looking terrifying like malevolent ghosts from hell. "Why? Do you have a problem with that?" The Rakshasa glared at the Palace Lord of Overlord Palace and asked with a dark gaze and raised brow. The Palace Lord of Overlord Palace grit his teeth. Under the gaze of the Rakshasa, he lowered his head and replied softly, "No." "Very good." The Rakshasa was satisfied and turned to leave. From then on, the 10,000 races were silent. No race dared to make a single sound. Nobody wanted to provoke the Rakshasa race and attract their killing intent for no reason. Suddenly, a Rakshasa turned around and glared into the crowd with killing intent. The cultivators standing there were from Ethereal Peak. Their leader was the old immortal crane of Ethereal Peak. Everyone from Ethereal Peak felt their hearts turn cold. They did not say anything nor did they make any sounds. They merely looked at Rakshasa for a moment more because she looked familiar. They did not know why they would attract killing intent. Chapter 1551, Domineering. Chapter 1551, Domineering. Tusk, Tsk. The Rakshasa glared at everyone from Ethereal Peak and walked over slowly with a sinister smile. His gaze was ferocious and sent shivers down one's spine. Swoosh! The many sects and factions surrounding Ethereal Peak dispersed, wanting nothing more than to avoid being implicated. In the blink of an eye, an empty space appeared around Ethereal Peak. There were only slightly more than 10 people from Ethereal Peak. Among the dozens of people, the strongest was only at the conjoint body realm. The Rakshasa could kill everyone from Ethereal Peak in a single move. Many sects and factions had indifferent expressions. Nobody wanted to provoke the Rakshasa race for some unrelated people and attract their killing intent. Earlier on, even the Palace Lord of Overlord Palace had to endure the murder of his disciple. There were way too many sects and factions like Ethereal Peak in Tianhuang mainland, who would stand out for them. To many cultivators, the people of Ethereal Peak were already dead. However, Ethereal Peak was extraordinary. Although the sect was not big and its foundation and strength were far inferior to the super sects, the Rakshasa race caused quite a stir when they sought out Ethereal Peak. People from various regions stood out at the same time. There were humans and fiend demons alike. 2 cultivators from Elixir Yang's sect, one of the 4 unorthodox groups, stood out right away. It was Su Xiaoning and Ji Qingtian. On the other side, a cold and aloof woman stood up slowly. It was the young mistress of Thousand Crane sect, Fairy Thousand Crane Ling Ro. Su Xiaoning knew of Su Zimo's relationship with Ethereal Peak and would naturally not stand by idly. As for Ji Qingtian and Ling Ro, they were cultivators from Ethereal Peak. Even though the 2 of them had long joined the 4 unorthodox groups, they had never forgotten the gratitude of Ethereal Peak. Little Fatty of Tomb's sect stood up with a grim expression as well. Damned Fatty, you were so afraid of death in the past. Why aren't you afraid now? Shi Jian grumbled softly and stood up as well. There are some things that I can hide from. Little Fatty had a rare moment of seriousness as he said darkly, however, they can't touch Ethereal Peak. A young monk of Dipamkara Monastery clasped his palms together and held a green lantern as he chanted Buddhist proclamations softly before exiting the crowd. A girl in pink with a veil from the Fiend sect's Pure Maiden sect smiled gently and stood out. In this generation, there were ultimately some people who, regardless of good, evil, immortals, fiends or cultivation, regarded loyalty even more importantly than life and death. Monkey, the spirit tiger, Ching Ching, the golden lion and little fox walked out from the demon regions as well. Perhaps, there was no distinction between races as well. When the Rakshasa noticed that, he narrowed his eyes and laughed menacingly. Why? A nest of ants appeared just because I want to kill a few ants? Ants that stood out, do you have a death wish just because you're indignant? The Rakshasa scanned his surroundings with a murderous gaze. The old immortal crane of Ethereal Peak took a deep breath of air and said in a deep voice, Rakshasa, may I ask what we have done to offend you? Nobody from Ethereal Peak said anything earlier on. The Rakshasa grinned. You guys have been watching our young mistress of the Rakshasa race for too long. Therefore, all of you have to die. Your young mistress is pure and innocent. She's not someone that can be disrespected by the gazes of ants like you. His words caused an uproar. The Rakshasa race was way too overbearing. The banning of private conversations was still acceptable for everyone. Now, even a lingered gaze at Rakshasa you could cost them their lives. The hearts of the cultivators skipped a beat as they lowered their heads hurriedly and avoided gazes. They no longer dared to look at Rakshasa you, afraid that the Rakshasa race would find them. Su Xiaoning frowned. You want to kill because of an extra look? How can there be such logic in the world? Foo-foo. The spirit tiger scoffed. Interesting. My eyes belong to me alone. I can look wherever I want, it's none of your business. The Rakshas's gaze swept through the crowd and landed on the spirit tiger. You have a death wish. Swoosh. The Rakshasa spread his wings and transformed into a dark streak of light, vanishing instantly. The next moment, he arrived above the spirit tiger's head and descended from the skies, slashing towards the latter's head with his sharp wings. It was too fast. Many cultivators could not even react to it. However, the spirit tiger was prepared and his body flashed with streaks of lightning. With a furious roar, he reverted to his true form and waved his claws to clash against the Rakshas's wings. Cling! Clang! Sparks flew. Instantly, the spirit tiger blocked more than 10 killing moves from the Rakshasa. However, the spirit tiger's body was massive and he was far inferior to the Rakshasa race in terms of agility and speed. He was flustered by the series of attacks from the Rakshasa race. Scram! Right then, a loud roar sounded from the battlefield. An incomparably thick golden rod suddenly descended and smashed towards the Rakshasa. The Rakshasa wanted to dodge, but he realized that he could not escape from the range of the golden rod no matter how he tried. Clang! The Rakshasa hurriedly brought out his curved saber to defend. The curved saber collided against the golden rod. The golden rod released an extremely terrifying power and smashed against the Rakshasa's chest as though it was crushing dry weeds, sending him flying. The crowd was in an uproar. Nobody expected that this seemingly unassuming monkey would be so domineering as to attack the Rakshasa race. Less than that, nobody expected that monkey would send a conjoint body Rakshasa flying with a single rod strike. The spirit tiger snickered. "Brother monkey, you're the best." Boom! Boom! Monkey's expression was cold and his eyes shone with a scarlet glint as he glared at the Rakshasa not far away, propping Imminent heavily on the ground. The stone slabs on the ground exploded instantly. Monkey's demonic chi was torrential and he suppressed the Rakshasa completely in terms of aura. Bang! The Rakshasa fell to the ground but he got up quickly with a dark expression. A few bones in his chest were broken. That bit of injury was not considered a serious injury for a conjoint body mighty figure. However, the Rakshasa felt utterly humiliated. They were at the 10,000 race meet and countless eyes witnessed him beaten up by a monkey. Hee hee. Wan Yu, your combat strength has regressed. How shameful. The other Rakshasas laughed when they saw that. Rakshasa Wan Yu's face was alternating between shades of green and white. The killing intent in his eyes intensified as he said coldly, "Don't stand there and watch us make a joke out of ourselves. Jia sure, come out and help me." "Sure thing." The Rakshasa named Jia sure grinned. He could not hold it in any longer and flew out, licking his lips with his grisly red tongue. Rakshasa Wan Yu clutched his chest and said as he healed his injuries, "I'll leave that monkey to you." "No problem." Rakshasa Jia sure's eyes were filled with excitement. Rakshasa Wan Yu shifted his gaze and glared at Ethereal Peak once more, saying coldly, "Let me kill those ants that were glaring at our young mistress earlier first." Chapter 1552, Young Master Arcane Ghost. Chapter 1552, Young Master Arcane Ghost. "That's enough." A cold voice sounded from ahead. It was Rakshasa Yu who had noticed the commotion and berated with a slight frown. "Young mistress, it's truly rude for those ants to stare at you." Rakshasa Wan Yu said, "Don't worry, young mistress. I'll kill these ants for you and not let their blood dirty your hands." Rakshasa Yu frowned slightly and her expression darkened. She waved it off impatiently. "They were just looking, it's nothing much. There's no need to pursue this matter." "That won't do, young mistress. There's no need for you to be so generous to these ants. Even though they can avoid death, they can't escape punishment." Rakshasa Wan Yu did not notice anything and said panderingly, "I'll go and pluck the eyeballs of those ants as a punishment." Over the years, the Rakshasa race had killed wantonly in Tianhuang mainland and had almost never encountered any major obstacles. The violent and bloodthirsty nature of the Rakshasa race was completely unleashed. With that said, Rakshasa Wan Yu's figure flashed and he lunged towards everyone from Ethereal Peak. Su Xiaoning, Ji Qingtian, Leng Ro, and the others were alarmed and were about to stop him. Swoosh! An even faster figure descended and arrived above Rakshasa Wan Yu instantly. The figure extended her fair palm and grabbed Rakshasa Wan Yu by the throat, smashing him onto the ground. Bang! Rakshasa Wan Yu was smashed into the ground and his tendons and bones felt like they were about to split. He grit his teeth in pain and sweat poured down his forehead. He was about to curse out loud when he saw the figure before him. Instantly, he swallowed the words he was about to say and almost bit his tongue. The person who threw him to the ground was the young mistress of the Rakshasa race, Rakshasa. This scene stunned all the living beings of the 10,000 races. Only some ethereal peak cultivators looked pensive. Oh my! The spirit tiger was not bothered by the commotion and snickered evilly, not worried about the consequences. What's going on? Starting off with some internal fighting? Young mistress, why? Rakshasa Wanyu felt aggrieved and was puzzled. Rakshasa Yu had a cold expression and said slowly, I just said that there's no need to pursue this matter. Didn't you hear me? I was just. Rakshasa Wanyu wanted to explain himself. Shut up. Rakshasa Yu advanced and stomped on Rakshasa Wanyu's face. Rakshasa Wanyu's vision darkened and he was knocked out on the spot. Snap! The jarring sound of bones cracking could be heard. All the living beings gasped slightly when they heard that single stomp crushed the face of Rakshasa Wanyu. When the living beings of the 10,000 races saw how beautiful Rakshasa Yu was, they thought that she was a gentle and easygoing person. To think that her sudden attack would be so terrifying and vicious that even her clansman was crippled. Most importantly, the living beings of the 10,000 races were completely confused. They could not understand why the beautiful Rakshasa Yu was suddenly enraged. Was it merely because Rakshasa Wanyu had disobeyed her orders? Even the Rakshasa race was puzzled, let alone the living beings present. Initially, Rakshasa Jia wanted to deal with Monkey. However, when he saw that, he shuddered in fear and retreated without hesitation. After that incident, many Rakshasas arrived at an area that belonged to the primordial races and no more Rakshasas jumped out to kill. Everything was calm. Many cultivators nodded to themselves as they gained more confidence in the 10,000 race meet. From the looks of it, Rakshasa Yu should be here to negotiate a reconciliation with us humans. Ethereal Peak sure is lucky. If Rakshasa Yu had not attacked, a huge battle would have broken out. That's right, if a huge battle were to break out before the other primordial races even arrive, there might be no way to continue this 10,000 race meet. Dong! As everyone discussed, the bell of Enigma Palace sounded once more. Far away, a group of cultivators in dark green robes walked over slowly. The group of cultivators looked no different from humans except for their pale faces and frightening green eyes in their deep sockets. The witch race had arrived at Enigma Palace. The leader of the witch race was skinny and his cheeks were sunken, looking like a skeleton that could be blown over by a gust of wind. However, when the living beings of the 10,000 races saw that witch race being, their hearts skipped a beat and they let out fearful expressions. That's young Master Arcane Ghost, right? It should be. I heard that when he appeared 20 years ago, he released an essence spirit curse in a battle and injured a human patriarch severely. Yes, although that patriarch escaped, he died not long after. That is way too scary. Many cultivators lowered their heads and did not dare to stare at the witches, afraid that a curse would descend. Greetings, young Master Arcane Ghost. Please enter. The Palace Lord of Enigma Palace led many Enigma Palace cultivators forward and welcomed the group. Young Master Arcane Ghost was expressionless and walked past the cultivators of Enigma Palace with the many witches without even looking at the Palace Lord. This was not contempt. It was a complete disregard. The expression of the Palace Lord of Enigma Palace changed slightly. However, after 100 years of cultivation, he had become even more composed and could remain indifferent despite such an insult, merely smiling faintly. Ah! Right then, a cultivator of Enigma Palace suddenly let out a tragic cry and fell to the ground. He struggled and rolled continuously as green mists spread from his body. The cultivator seemed to be in extreme pain as he tore away the clothes on his body repeatedly. He grabbed his face and tore off his flesh pieces by a time, disfiguring himself completely. All the living beings felt chills run down their spines when they heard the tragic cries and saw that junior brother. Another Enigma Palace cultivator wanted to head forward and check on his fellow sect mate. Don't touch him. The palace lord of Enigma Palace's expression changed as he reminded hurriedly. Unfortunately, it was too late. When the cultivator of Enigma Palace at the back touched the cultivator on the ground, his palm was stained with green mist as well. Instantly, the flesh on the palm of the Enigma Palace cultivator began to corrode and fall off. Ah! The cultivator let out a tragic cry as well. The cultivators of Enigma Palace were alarmed and dispersed. In that short period of time, the first cultivator of Enigma Palace that fell to the ground was already motionless, turning into a pool of blood. There was only a corpse left on the spot. A conjoint body mighty figure was dead just like that. The second mighty figure of Enigma Palace did not manage to hold on for long either. In a few breaths, he turned into a pool of blood in front of everyone. Everyone from Enigma Palace was helpless and could only watch weakly. Su Xiaoning had just closed in with a bottle of elixirs to help, but it was already too late. The palace lord gripped his fists with a sorrowful expression and turned to look at young Master Arcane Ghost. Taking a deep breath of air, he asked in a deep voice, "Young Master Arcane Ghost, may I ask what's the meaning of this?" Cough, cough. Young Master Arcane Ghost coughed twice and said in a sickly manner, "He was too close to me earlier on and I killed him by mistake. It was an accident." With a casual excuse of an accident because someone was too close, two conjoint body mighty figures of Enigma Palace were killed. The palace lord of Enigma Palace was enraged. However, he could only endure it for the sake of the 10,000 race meat. The cultivators were silent and their hearts were filled with sadness. At that moment, they gradually experienced the savage, cold-blooded, cruel and merciless times of the primordial era as stated in the legends. Chapter 1553, Savage Eye. Chapter 1553, Savage Eye. With just the arrival of two primordial races, the Rakshasa and Witch races had already taken the initiative to intimidate others. Many cultivators were secretly worried. The situation doesn't seem good. The sect master of Snowdrift Valley was a middle-aged beauty. She looked gentle and murmured softly with a hint of worry. Amitba. Abbot Huishan of Dipamkara Monastery chanted a Buddhist proclamation with a worried expression. The primordial races were way too domineering and the human race naturally did not have much room for negotiation. As such, the outcome of this 10,000 race meet would not be favorable either. Dong! The bell of Enigma Palace sounded once more. A large blood mist floated over from afar with figures faintly visible within. Before they arrived above Enigma Palace, a blood stench spread. The Blood Vine Race. 100 years ago, the Blood Vine race destroyed Southern Duel's sect, one of the upper sections. In the end, they were suppressed by Desolate Marshal on Six Stars Mountain, and even the young master of the Blood Vine race at that time, Tinglingzi, was killed. That battle had shamed the Blood Vine race. However, the Blood Vine race was notorious in the past 100 years. Not long ago, Clear Wind Temple, one of the immortal sects, was destroyed. More than 10 Mahayana patriarchs of Clear Wind Temple died in that battle. In the end, the emperor of Clear Wind Temple even appeared and was buried at the peak of Clear Wind Mountain, causing a huge stir in the cultivation world. Compared to the Blood Vine race, the Witch and Rakshasa races had not done much over the years. The hearts of many cultivators skipped a beat and they became nervous instantly, afraid that they would be killed if the Blood Vine race noticed them. The palace lord of Enigma Palace took a deep breath and suppressed the rage in his heart. His expression returned to normal as he welcomed everyone with cupped fists. "Greetings, Blood Vine race. Please enter." The current young master of the Blood Vine race was Ting Luo. He was also an extremely famous monster incarnate of the Blood Vine race. However, if Ting Lingzi did not die, Ting Luo would not have had the chance to become the young master of the Blood Vine race. His bloodthirst was even comparable to Ting Lingzi. What a crowd! Ting Luo smacked his lips and looked around the crowd, saying excitedly, "I can't wait to eat so much fresh food." He. Many blood vines let out shuddering laughter. The living beings of the 10,000 races felt their hearts turn cold when they heard that. The blood vine race did not conceal their thoughts the moment they arrived. In their eyes, all living beings of the 10,000 races were nothing but food. Ting Luo surveyed the surroundings, and the living beings of the 10,000 races avoided him, not daring to meet his gaze. Ha 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 ha. He was smug and said with a smile, "Don't worry. I've just consumed hundreds of foods and I'm not hungry yet." As he said that, Ting Luo led the blood vine race in. Many cultivators heaved a sigh of relief. Dong! Dong! The bell sounded twice in succession. In the distant horizon, two groups of cultivators were speeding over. The cultivators on the left were all tall with golden hair and blue eyes. The men were handsome and the women were beautiful. They arrived together like golden couples. The god race had arrived. The cultivator on the other side looked no different from humans. However, there was a faint blood scar on their glabellas that resembled a closed eye. The heavenly eye race had arrived. Two primordial races had arrived at Enigma Palace at the same time. The Palace Lord of Enigma Palace appeared once more and welcomed the two races in. The leader of the god race should be Goddess Xiaoxiang. Indeed, she's peerless and flawless, comparable to Rakshasas. Many cultivators could not help but praise the woman leading the god race. Strange, it said that the god race's Goddess Xiaoxiang and the firmament sovereign are a golden couple. They are a match made in heaven and they often appear hand in hand. Why are we only seeing the goddess and not the sovereign at such a grand event? I'm not sure. He must be delayed by something. Some cultivators conversed secretly with their spirit consciousnesses. Who's the blind man leading the heavenly eye race? Right then, the young master of one of the upper sects, Heaven's Shaking Sect, asked secretly with a voice transmission using his spirit consciousness. The leader of the heavenly eye race had shoulder-length hair and was expressionless. There were two pitch-black holes in his eyes that looked terrifying. The sect master of Heaven's Shaking Sect sent a voice transmission, "What blind man? Be careful. That person is not to be trifled and is ruthless. Don't get into big trouble. Sect master, don't worry. We're communicating with our spirit consciousnesses and he can't hear us," the young master of Heaven's Shaking Sect said indifferently. There's nothing wrong with being careful. The sect master of Heaven's Shaking Sect reminded before explaining, that person is the young master of the heavenly eye race, Savage Eye. I heard that he destroyed his own eyes in order to cultivate the heavenly eye when he was young. Ah! The young master of Heaven's Shaking Sect was secretly speechless. The sect master of Heaven's Shaking Sect continued, "If Savage Eye is so ruthless to himself, how do you think he treats others? Now that he's at the half-martial ancestor realm, he can completely regrow his eyes, right?" The young master of Heaven's Shaking Sect asked again. The sect master of Heaven's Shaking Sect shook his head. If his eyes return to normal, it's equivalent to crippling more than half of his cultivation. The fact that he named himself Savage Eye means that he has already made up his mind that he won't see the light of day ever again. How ruthless. The young master of Heaven's Shaking Sect grimaced and sent a voice transmission, "What's the fun of living a life without seeing anything for the sake of cultivation?" Right then, the young master of the heavenly eye race suddenly stopped in his tracks. Turning around slowly, a pair of pitch-black holes faced the direction of Heaven's Shaking Sect. At that moment, the expressions of the sect master and young master of Heaven's Shaking Sect changed and they felt their scalps prickle. Their hearts seemed to have stopped beating. Fellow Taoist Savage Eye, is there anything? The sect master of Heaven's Shaking Sect tried his best to remain calm, but his voice could not help but tremble. Savage Eye said indifferently, "I hate to hear people discussing my eyes. Furthermore, you guys even used a term that I'm extremely unwilling to hear, blind man." The expressions of the sect master and young master of Heaven's Shaking Sect turned incomparably pale as cold sweat poured down instantly. Savage Eye smirked with a mocking expression. "Do you think that I won't be able to hear you guys just because you're communicating with your spirit consciousnesses?" Since he destroyed his own eyes, he could naturally hear things that no one else could. Suddenly, a fine crack appeared from the heavenly eye on the glabella of Savage Eye. An extremely terrifying energy fluctuation burst forth and a gigantic cold beam swept past the direction of Heaven's shaking sect. It was too fast. The power of visual techniques was completely instantaneous. Furthermore, it was the visual technique of the young master of the Heavenly Eye race. The eyes of the young master and sect master of Heaven's shaking sect widened and their expressions froze. Poof! 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 A blood mist spewed out and dozens of cultivators from Heaven's shaking sect and 3 conjoint body mighty figures were killed by the visual technique in the blink of an eye with their essence spirits destroyed. There was only a pile of minced flesh left on the ground with a torrential blood stench. Savage Eye merely opened his eye and all the cultivators of Heaven's shaking sect were dead. Everything went silent. All the living beings were stunned by the cruel methods of Savage Eye and did not even dare to take deep breaths. There was naturally a reason why the primordial races were able to dominate Tianhuang mainland and rule over the 10,000 races in the primordial era. Against the young masters of the primordial races, mighty figures of the human race were as insignificant as ants and could be crushed with ease. Chapter 1554, 4 Princes. Chapter 1554, 4 Princes. Brother Savage Eye, you sure are capable. Ting Luo grinned and praised. Savage Eye nodded slightly in the direction of Ting Luo as a form of greeting. The Palace Lord of Enigma Palace glanced at the god race and frowned slightly. May I ask why the Firmament Sovereign isn't here, Goddess Xiaoxiang? What rights do you have to ask about the location of the sovereign? Goddess Xiaoxiang glanced sideways and asked with an unfriendly expression. No. You've misunderstood, Goddess. The Palace Lord of Enigma Palace explained hurriedly, this is the 10,000 race meet after all and the Firmament Sovereign is the young master of the god race. Don't worry, I can make the decision for everything in the god race. As for the sovereign. Goddess Xiaoxiang paused for a moment and a hint of pride flashed through her eyes. He will definitely come. Furthermore, he'll give you guys a surprise. The heart of the Palace Lord of Enigma Palace sank. The surprise mentioned by Goddess Xiaoxiang was most likely a disaster for the human race. The Palace Lord of Enigma Palace could not ask further and could only force a smile. I'm truly looking forward to it then. Xiaoxiang, what surprise does Brother Firmament Sovereign have? Let us know. Ting Luo was curious and could not help but ask. Goddess Xiaoxiang smiled brightly. You'll know when the time comes. He'll bring with him some people you won't expect. Dong. The bell of Enigma Palace sounded once more. Screech. A piercing cry sounded from the distant horizon. Beams of blinding golden light surged over with a scorching aura. Hundreds of 3D golden crows flapped their wings. The 4 3D golden crows leading them had the strongest auras and the fiercest flames. From afar, it looked like 4 blazing suns were flying towards them. The golden crow race had arrived at Enigma Palace. Gazing at the 3D golden crows that flew over from midair, the Buddhist monks revealed grief and indignation in their eyes. Clear Heart Nunnery of the 6 Buddhist monasteries was destroyed by the Golden Crow race. Of the 6 Buddhist monasteries, Dipamkara Monastery, Diamond Monastery, Formless Monastery, Wisdom Monastery, Hollow Monastery and Clear Heart Nunnery, Clear Heart Nunnery was the most peaceful. That was because Clear Heart Nunnery was filled with nuns and most of them were aloof from worldly affairs. They were kind to others and rarely participated in the fights of the cultivation world. To think that such a super sect would be slaughtered mercilessly by the Golden Crow race. In that battle, countless nuns of Clear Heart Nunnery died. The radius of hundreds of kilometers around Clear Heart Nunnery was burned into ruins by the Golden Crow race. There were even more living beings that died in that fire. Haha. Ting Luo stood up and roared in laughter. To think that 4 princes of the Golden Crow race would be mobilized for this 10,000 race meet. How rare. The Golden Crow race had a total of 10 princes. Among them, the seventh prince was the strongest in combat. 3 of them were killed by the dragon phoenix true body on Penglai Island. Among the 4 princes of Enigma Palace, the 7th was present. Apart from him, the 8th, 9th and 10th princes were present as well. Many 3D golden crows descended on the square and transformed into their human forms, heading towards the crowd. When he heard Ting Luo's greeting, the 8th prince burst into laughter as well. Since we're all curious, we came along with 7th brother to see what's the deal with this 10,000 race meet that the human race has created. What a crowd. The 9th prince was a little excited. Fellow Taoists, you're all here. The 10th prince was the youngest and looked like a young man around 16 years old. However, he would reveal a hint of ferocity from time to time despite his young age. Not everyone was qualified to be one of the Golden Crow 10 princes. This was a title that could only be obtained after countless bloodshed and stepping on the corpses of many clansmen. It was extremely noble. Although the 10th prince was not old, his hands were stained with endless blood. Without his ferocity, he would not have been able to take on a position in the Golden Crow 10 princes. The 4 princes of the Golden Crow race gathered had different personalities. The 7th prince had a cold, expressionless face and had not said anything the entire time. The 8th and 9th princes were clearly more excited. As for the 10th prince, although he did not say anything, his eyes darted left and right, no one could read his thoughts. The primordial 6 races were all here. Among the primordial 9 races, only the primordial 6 races had expressed their willingness to take part in the 10,000 race meet. There was no news from the dragon, barbarian and Kuan races. In other words, the 10,000 race meet could begin. The palace lord of Enigma Palace took a deep breath and stood out, declaring, "Thank you, fellow Taoists of the 10,000 races, for giving Enigma Palace some respect to come and attend this event. I hereby declare that the 10,000 race meet shall officially." Hold on. Before the palace lord of Enigma Palace could finish, he was interrupted. The Golden Crow 8th Prince race stood out and glanced askance at the palace lord of Enigma Palace with a disdainful expression as he sneered, "Old man, who are you? Who said that you are qualified to host the 10,000 race meet?" The expression of the palace lord of Enigma Palace was unchanged as he said in a deep voice, "I'm the palace lord of Enigma Palace and my Dao title is Qingzai. Enigma Palace was the one who initiated the 10,000 race meet this time round and it's held in Enigma Palace. Naturally, I should be the one hosting it. Does the 8th prince have any objections?" Objections? The 8th prince shrugged. Of course there are objections. Get the hell down, you're an eyesore. Ha 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 ha. Many golden crows roared in laughter. The Rakshasa and Bloodvine races cheered as well. The palace lord of Enigma Palace gritted his teeth and repressed the rage in his heart. 7th prince, may I ask if is this the intention of the Golden Crow race? 8th's words are equal to mine. The 7th prince said indifferently. Ting Luo raised his brows slightly as well and smacked his lips. I'm curious as well. What rights does a puny ant of the human race have to host the 10,000 race meet? Only our primordial races are qualified to host such a grand event. Goddess Xiaoxiang nodded as well and said in a deep voice. The palace lord of Enigma Palace had a terrible expression as he stood on the spot, unable to advance or retreat. Before the 10,000 race meet began, the primordial 6 races were already aggressive and took the initiative. If he were to hand the 10,000 race meet over to the primordial 6 races, there would probably be no possibility of any peaceful discussions at that time. Why? Are you unconvinced? When the 8th prince saw that the palace lord of Enigma Palace did not retreat for a long time, he could not help but raise his brow with a murderous expression. A commotion broke out in the crowd as well. Some of the super sect masters frowned with worried expressions. Why? You bunch of ants aren't convinced either? The 8th prince surveyed his surroundings and said slowly, not concealing the killing intent in his heart. Right then, the 7th prince said slowly, don't say that the Golden Crow race is insincere and doesn't give you humans a chance. It's fine if you want to host the 10,000 race meet. If any human can stand out and defeat the Golden Crow race, we'll let the human race be the host. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a joke if any random nobody could just jump out to host the 10,000 race meet? Chapter 1555, Challenge. Chapter 1555, Challenge. The Palace Lord of Enigma Palace had a terrible expression. The seventh prince was clearly insulting him by calling him a random nobody. Furthermore, he did not hide it at all. Ting Luo nodded. That's not a bad idea. If this person can't convince everyone here, don't bother trying to host the 10,000 race meet. What an embarrassment. Seventh brother, you were wrong earlier on. The eighth prince said with a smile. Oh. The seventh prince glanced sideways. The eighth prince said, it's not about who can challenge the Golden Crow race, it's about who dares. The ninth prince surveyed his surroundings as well and shouted, that's right. The Golden Crow race will give the human race a fair chance. Who dares to stand out? No one replied. Even the sect masters of the super sects knew that they would definitely lose against the primordial races of the same cultivation realm. Eighth, ninth, you're all half-martial ancestors. Come back and sit down. You guys will become bullies if you were to attack. Let the clansmen behind you play. The seventh prince had spoken. The eighth and ninth princes sat back and crossed their arms, prepared to watch the show. A golden crow darted out and surveyed his surroundings with a smile. I'm Golden Feather. Who dares to play games with me? The crowd stirred but no one stood out. Ji Qingtian and the others had the intention to do so. However, they had just entered the conjoint body realm and had no chance of winning at all. Golden Feather burst into laughter with a mocking expression. I'm only at the conjoint body realm. I won't reject even if a half-martial ancestor of the human race challenges me. What? Is there still nobody? Ha 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 ha. Golden Feather burst into laughter. The human race only has that bit of guts and you want to host the 10,000 race meet and negotiate peace with our primordial 6 races? I'll do it. Right then, a monk could not help but stand out, attracting countless gazes. Ah! It's the abbot of Diamond Monastery, Monk Kong Dermic. To think that the abbot of Diamond Monastery would have such a fiery temper. Sigh, it's not just Diamond Monastery. All the Buddhist monks are most likely filled with rage because of the destruction of Clearheart Nunnery. Oh. Golden Feather's gaze landed on Monk Kong Dermic as he nodded. Very good, you've got some guts, bald monk. However, I wonder how capable you are. I'll show you what I'm capable of today. Monk Kong Dermic's cultivation had already reached the half-martial ancestor realm. The moment he entered the battlefield, he summoned his destiny dermic weapon, the diamond staff. Develop a mind that abides nowhere. Monk Kong Dermic chanted a Buddhist sutra and his body was instantly filled with a blinding golden light. His heart thumped in his chest in a dull and powerful manner. Splash! Monk Kong Dermic's bloodline had already been cultivated to the tsunami blood realm. Although Monk Kong Dermic was a half-martial ancestor, he did not dare to be careless and released many trump cards right away, charging towards Golden Feather. Foo-foo. Golden Feather sneered with a mocking expression and vanished in a flash. Monk Kong Dermic's attack missed instantly. Too slow. Right then, the mockery of Golden Feather sounded in Monk Kong Dermic's ears. Monk Kong Dermic was alarmed and swung his diamond staff in reverse without even turning back. The attack missed once more. Golden Feather left a long time ago. The Golden Crow race's movement technique was merely slightly inferior to the Rakshasa race among the primordial 9 races. Diamond Monastery focused on body tempering and was completely countered by the Golden Crow race in terms of movement technique. Shing! A gigantic gash appeared on Monk Kong Dermic's back and his flesh was overturned. It was so deep that his bones were revealed as blood gushed out. Abbot, watch out! Many Diamond Monastery monks exclaimed. Monk Kong Dermic's eyes widened as he focused his spirit, wanting to capture Golden Feather's tracks. However, to him, Golden Feather's figure was merely like a faint golden light that could not be captured. Shing! Before long, another wound appeared on Monk Kong Dermic's body. Monk Kong Dermic grit his teeth and remained silent, continuing to fight. He believed that as long as his diamond staff could strike Golden Feather, he would definitely be able to severely injure it. Unfortunately, he could not even touch the corner of Golden Feather's clothes. Sigh. The abbot of Dipamkara Monastery, Monk Huishen, sighed. Before long, Monk Kong Dermic was covered in injuries and the golden barrier on his body dimmed slightly as his blood chi gradually deteriorated. Admit defeat. We admit defeat. The titular disciple of Diamond Monastery stood out and shouted. Monk Kong Dermic panted as well. I can't defeat you. You've won. As he said that, he wanted to retreat to the crowd of Diamond Monastery. You still want to leave? Golden Feather's cold voice reverberated around Monk Kong Dermic, erratic and unpredictable. Monk Kong Dermic's blood chi was severely depleted and his reaction time and defense was greatly reduced. Suddenly, Golden Feather appeared behind Monk Kong Dermic and extended his palm, piercing his sharp nails into the latter's head. Monk Kong Dermic paused and his gaze dimmed. The life force in his body decreased and his essence spirit was pierced by Golden Feather's fingernails. Monk Kong Dermic was dead. Abbot. The monks of Diamond Monastery cried tragically and charged forward. Why? You want to die together? Golden Feather's gaze intensified and he transformed into a golden streak of light, shuttling through the crowd. Poof. 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 Flashes of blood appeared. In the blink of an eye, 3 Diamond Monastery monks at the front were dead on the spot. The remaining Diamond Monastery monks were scared out of their wits and stopped in their tracks, not daring to advance. The titular disciple of Diamond Monastery said in a deep voice, Golden Feather, we merely want to retrieve the abbot's corpse. We have no intention of offending you. A corpse? Golden Feather smiled gently. There's no corpse. After saying that, a ball of golden flames burst forth from Golden Feather's fingertip and landed on Monk Kong Dermic. With a whoosh, it burned into flames. Everyone from Diamond Monastery was stunned. Amitba. When they saw that, countless Buddhist monks chanted Buddhist proclamations with sorrowful expressions. In the blink of an eye, Monk Kong Dermic was burned to ashes without a corpse left. He was not even willing to leave behind a corpse. Sigh. Abbot Huishen of Dipamkara Monastery sighed and stood up slowly. Right then, a palm appeared on Abbot Huishen's shoulder. Abbot, let me do it. A young monk wielding a green lantern said softly with a resolute tone. Mingzhen, you. Abbot Huishen was a little hesitant. Mingzhen was at the late-stage conjoint body realm. However, Golden Feather was at the perfected conjoint body realm. Everyone knew that they might not be able to win against experts of the primordial races even if they had an advantage in terms of cultivation realm. Furthermore, his cultivation realm was even lower than the expert of the primordial race. As the abbot of Diamond Monastery and a half-martial ancestor expert, Monk Kong Dermic was killed by the conjoint body Golden Feather in less than 10 breaths. Mingzhen was a minor cultivation realm beneath Golden Feather. There was almost no chance of him winning. Chapter 1556, Green Lantern. Chapter 1556, Green Lantern. Why? Is there no one else who dares to challenge me? Golden Feather sneered and surveyed his surroundings, sneering, the human race isn't even capable of defeating me and you guys think you can host the 10,000 race meet? Tui. Golden Feather spat with disdain. It was as though he had spat on the faces of all the cultivators. The sect masters of the super sects were silent. Indeed, there were some half-martial ancestor paragons in this generation's immortal, fiend, and Buddhist sections. If they stood out, they might be able to defeat Golden Feather. However, all the cultivators knew that the four princes, the entire Golden Crow race and even the primordial 6 races were backing Golden Feather. Right now, Golden Feather was the one challenging the human race. However, the other experts of the primordial 6 races such as Young Master Arcane Ghost, Goddess Xiaoxiang, and the other monster incarnates watched from the side. Not many people could withstand that pressure. More importantly, a fight against Golden Feather wasn't a spar, it was a fight to the death. Although it seemed fair on the surface, it was not fair. That was because although the primordial 6 races dared to kill brazenly, the human paragons present did not have the guts. Whoever dared to kill Golden Feather would have to endure the wrath of the Golden Crow race next. At that time, there was a high chance that their entire sex would be implicated. Suddenly, the island master of Penglai Island said, "Since that's the case, it's only right for the young masters of the primordial 6 races to host the 10,000 race meet." Penglai Island is in favor of this suggestion. Many cultivators were shocked when they heard that. If the primordial 6 races were to host the 10,000 race meet, it would mean that the human race would lose their final advantage and initiative without the chance to even negotiate. Many sect masters frowned and looked at the island master of Penglai Island in disbelief. The palace lord of Enigma Palace said with a grim expression, "Tianqi, there are some suggestions you should be careful of." "I concur as well." Suddenly, the sect master of Heavenly Dipper sect said, "Since Enigma Palace isn't qualified, it's normal for the primordial 6 races to host it." The sect master of Malevolent Earth sect nodded as well. "It's a gathering of the 10,000 races to begin with. It doesn't matter who hosts it. The primordial 6 races once ruled over Tianhuang mainland and are indeed qualified. Corpse Refinement Cult is agreeable as well. Poison Sect is agreeable. The Dongfang and Shiman aristocratic families are agreeable." In the blink of an eye, many super sects stood out and supported the primordial 6 races. A commotion broke out in the crowd. The sect masters of Snowdrift Valley, Purple Firmament Sect, Dipamkra Monastery, and the other sect masters were alarmed. They knew what that meant. There was a high chance that the super sects that had stood out now had already joined forces with the primordial 6 races or even submitted to them. Humph. The spirit tiger pouted his lips. Those cowards that are as cowardly as rats have already surrendered before the fight even began. "We agree." Right then, a conjoint body spider demon said loudly. The spider demon was from one of the 8 demon regions, the Thousand Spider Sand Dune. The East Sea demon region agrees as well. A grand demon of the East Sea stood out. Thousand Demon Valley is agreeable. Peacock Ridge is agreeable to it. In the blink of an eye, half of the 8 demon regions stood out and agreed that the primordial 6 races should host the 10,000 race meet. Ha 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 ha. The Golden Crow 8th Prince reared his head in laughter. "So, the 10,000 races are all looking forward to the return of our primordial 6 races to Tianhuang mainland. Since all living beings of the 10,000 races are agreeable to it, we'll accept it." "I don't agree." Right then, an untimely voice sounded. It sounded extremely piercing to the experts of the primordial 6 races. A young monk walked out slowly. "Another bald monk is here to die?" Before the 4 princes could speak, Golden Feather's expression darkened as he glared at the young monk murderously. He could attack at any moment. "Who is that little monk? He's only at the late stage conjoint body realm. Is he here to die?" Mingzhen of Dipamkra Monastery possesses the inheritance of Fahua and Daming monasteries and even obtained the legacy of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva in the Tao inheritance ground. He was once the titular disciple of Dipamkra Monastery and should have some means. There's no use having some means. He's courting death by having a lower cultivation realm than the Golden Crow race. I heard that Monk Mingzhen has a good relationship with Desolate Marshal. Sigh, speaking of which, if Desolate Marshal was still around, he would definitely be able to fight against the experts of the primordial 6 races with his combat strength. Many cultivators had conflicted expressions at the mention of Desolate Marshal. Up till this point of Desolate Marshal's rise, he was targeted and even hunted by the super sects collectively. However, many sects could not deny the fact. Desolate Marshal was the strongest monster incarnate in the human race in this generation. Late-stage conjoint body realm? On the battlefield, Golden Feather looked at Mingzhen and suddenly sneered. Seems like there's really not much humans left. To think that even a late-stage conjoint body would want to come forth and die now. Why, you want to challenge someone above your level, bald monk? Amitba. Mingzhen held the green lantern in his left hand and shook his head gently. I merely want an explanation for Senior Kong Dermic as well as the fallen fellow Taoists of Clearheart Nunnery. Alright, I'll send you to hell to meet them right away. Golden Feather's gaze intensified and he vanished on the spot in a flash. In the blink of an eye, Golden Feather had already arrived behind Mingzhen. He reached out and his sharp nails dug into Mingzhen's head. His movement technique was way too fast. Most of the cultivators present could not capture any traces of Golden Feather at all, and all they could see was a streak of flickering golden light. Mingzhen stood on the spot motionlessly with his head lowered, as though he could not react in time. It's over. That little monk is already a dead man. That was how Monk Kong Dermic died earlier on. Golden Feather is still in human form. If he transforms into his true form, his speed and strength will increase exponentially. It's hard to imagine how strong he will be. As everyone discussed, Mingzhen did not turn back nor did he move. He merely raised the green lantern in his hands towards his head. There was a flame the size of a pinky burning on the green lantern, as though it could be extinguished with a single pinch. However, when Golden Feather's palm landed on the wisp of flames, he shuddered as though he was agitated and retracted his palm. Howl! Golden Feather shrieked tragically and retreated with a pained expression. The living beings of the 10,000 races looked over with shocked expressions. A huge hole was burned in Golden Feather's palm, but not a single drop of blood flowed out. The surrounding flesh was charred. This scene had completely exceeded the expectations of the living beings of the 10,000 races. Golden Feather lost? What dermic weapon is that? It's so powerful. This seems to be the destiny dermic treasure of the founder master of Dipamkara Monastery, Buddha Emperor Boundless Light. That is not a dermic weapon but an emperor weapon. Ah, it's that green lantern. That's right. I heard that in the ancient war, the green lantern was shattered by the emperors of the primordial races and fell from the emperor weapon realm to become an ordinary dermic weapon. To think that this dermic weapon would be passed down to Mingzhen. Chapter 1557, Feathered Lowlife. Chapter 1557, Feathered Lowlife. Bald Monk. Golden Feather was enraged. All these years, the Golden Crow race had dominated Tianhuang mainland and was almost invincible. He had never encountered such an injury. Under normal circumstances, given the Golden Crow race's regeneration capabilities, they should recover quickly with the surge of their blood chi. However, the flames on the green lantern possessed an extremely terrifying might. When Golden Feather's blood chi surged over, it was burned and refined into nothingness. You've enraged me. Golden Feather's expression was cold and his eyes burned with rage. He reared his head and roared into the skies as his blood chi surged and his body expanded. In the blink of an eye, he reverted to his true form. A gigantic 3D golden crow descended on the battlefield. The 3D golden crow spread his wings that were dozens of feet long and burned with blazing flames. Every single wing shone with a golden light. One of his 3 legs was clearly incomplete. It was the claw that was burned by the green lantern. Do you want to play with fire? Golden Feather's voice sounded. Today, I'll let you have a taste of the Golden Crow race's destiny flame. He opened his mouth and suddenly spat out a stream of scorching flames. With a golden flash, the temperature of the entire battlefield rose. That's the Sun Essence Fire. Legend has it that when the Golden Crow race's Sun Essence Fire is cultivated to its limits, it can even transform into a blazing sun. The living beings of the 10,000 races exclaimed. Ming Zhen's expression was unchanged as he held the green lantern in his hands and chanted Sanskrit. His glabella shone and a dermic power shot out from his fingertip into the green lantern. Swoosh! Suddenly, the flame on the green lantern expanded wildly and burst into flames, charging towards the sun essence fire. The green and golden flames collided and devoured one another without relenting, forming a stalemate. Ming Zhen is truly not simple. Although the green lantern was an emperor weapon in the past, it would definitely not be able to unleash such might if one's comprehension of Buddhism was not deep enough. That's right, there are too few people who can suppress the Golden Crow race in terms of flames. Among the 9 races, only the Illumination Dragon lineage of the dragon race can fight against the Golden Crow race in the Tao of Flames. Golden Feather channeled his essence spirit wildly and flames danced in his eyes. Under the watch of the Golden Crow clansmen, the 4 princes and the experts of the primordial 6 races as well as the living beings of the 10,000 races, he must not lose. Suddenly, 2 golden flames burst forth from Golden Feather's eyes with an extremely terrifying aura. Visual technique, flowing fire eye. Ming Zhen looked at the 2 incoming flames and suddenly blinked. Lowering his head slightly, he emanated an extremely benevolent might. The moment the 2 flames landed in front of Ming Zhen, they were extinguished. When the Bodhisattva's head is lowered, thousands of visual techniques can be dispelled. The might of Ming Zhen's body surged into the green lantern and the green flame intensified. Instantly, it devoured Golden Feather's sun essence fire and rose against the tide to devour the latter. Golden Feather's expression changed as he spread his wings hurriedly, preparing to escape from the range of the green flames. Right then, Ming Zhen's voice sounded. Great Vow Seal. Ming Zhen reached out and conjured a dermic seal, pressing it slowly in the direction of Golden Feather. The speed of the dermic seal was extremely slow. However, Golden Feather felt as though he was restrained by an extremely powerful force and could not move at all, as though a gigantic mountain was pressing down on him. The Great Vow Seal contained the power of hope from Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. He swore that he would only attain Buddhahood if hell was empty and all living beings were liberated. His tremendous willpower could even subdue hell, let alone a 3D Golden Crow. Against the Great Vow Seal, the speed of the 3D Golden Crow was completely useless. Golden Feather seemed to be frozen in midair and could only watch helplessly as the green flames engulfed him. Ah! Golden Feather shrieked in the flames. The 10,000 races were shaken. Many cultivators were invigorated as well. Ming Zhen had won this battle. Furthermore, he had won against the Golden Crow race despite his lower cultivation realm. Ming Zhen's expression was unchanged when he heard Golden Feather's tragic cry in the flames and he had no intention of stopping. Abbot Huishan of Dipamkara Monastery looked worried. That's enough. Suddenly, the 8th prince said coldly. Ming Zhen was unmoved. You must have a death wish. Suddenly, the 8th prince vanished from the spot. The moment he said that, he had already arrived before Ming Zhen and reached out to grab the ladder. Before the palm descended, it transformed into the sharp claws of the Golden Crow race. Ah! A wave of shock and astonishment could be heard from the crowd. The 8th prince, a half-martial ancestor, had attacked. This was no longer a minor realm difference. This was a suppression of cultivation realm. Ming Zhen was extremely calm and his blood chi surged, raising him to the tsunami blood realm instantly. He punched the 8th prince heavily in the palm. Bang! Ming Zhen shuddered and grunted dully, staggering 3 steps back with a pained expression. With every step, a deep footprint would appear on the ground. The strength of a half-martial ancestor was way too terrifying, let alone one of the Golden Crow 10 princes. It was as the cultivators had expected. Even if Ming Zhen defeated Golden Feather, an even stronger primordial race being would stand out. The arrival of a half-martial ancestor of the primordial races was something that no one in the same cultivation realm could match. Little monk, have a taste of my sun essence fire. Suddenly, the 8th prince opened his mouth and spat out a blazing golden flame that surged over. Ming Zhen had a grim expression and could only give up on killing Golden Feather. Retracting his green lantern, he channeled a green flame and burned it towards the 8th Prince's Sun Essence Fire. This time round, the green flame was devoured by the Sun Essence Fire almost instantly. This Sun Essence Fire contained a trace of divine power. Ming Zhen's green flames could not defend against it at all. The Sun Essence Fire engulfed Ming Zhen and he had nowhere to retreat. He took a deep breath of air and suddenly assumed a lotus position on the ground, chanting a sutra. Instantly, a golden light emanated from his body. That was the Ksitigarbha true body. The Sun Essence Fire engulfed Ming Zhen and burned him continuously. Ming Zhen clasped his palms together and his body was filled with golden light. He sat in the flames and channeled his essence spirit to defend with all his might. Hee. The 8th Prince sneered coldly, let's see how long more you can last. The 8th Prince's spirit consciousness was vast and his dermic powers were boundless as they surged continuously into the Sun Essence Fire. The flames blazed and climbed more than 100 feet into the air. It intensified and surged with a blinding golden light, engulfing Ming Zhen's figure before long. The excited crowd gradually calmed down as they looked at the ball of flames. Many cultivators looked dejected. Is there anyone else from the human race? The 8th Prince's aura was torrential as he stood in midair and looked down at the 10,000 races with disdain. Who dares to stand out and fight me? No one replied. What a bunch of trash. The 8th Prince spat with a disdainful expression and sneered, the fortune of the human race is depleted and the era of the ancient emperors have passed. There's only you bunch of weak and cowardly people left. You're not worthy to be the masters of Tianhuang mainland. Every single sentence from the 8th Prince seemed to pierce the hearts of many cultivators. Some were frustrated, some were indignant and some were affronted. However, no one could step forward. That was because many cultivators knew that even if they stood out, they would be killed by the 8th Prince easily and would only humiliate themselves. They could not defend at all. If humans are not worthy, a feathered lowlife like you is even less worthy. A cold voice sounded from outside, causing an uproar. Chapter 1558, Domineering Asura. Chapter 1558, Domineering Asura. Feathered lowlife. Who in this world would dare to call the Golden Crow race a feathered lowlife? Was he truly not afraid of death? The voice was hoarse and deep, but it possessed an indescribable magic, as though it looked down on all living beings and races. Who was it? Who would have the guts? Who would have such boldness? All the cultivators turned towards the voice. Not far away, a cultivator with white hair walked over slowly with a cold expression. His eyes were pitch black and he dragged a saber that was coiled with fiend shi in his right hand. Asura. It's the Asura, Biyao. The crowd exclaimed. Under normal circumstances, the titular disciple of Asura's sect was the Asura while Biyao had already left the sect. However, in this generation, in the hearts of all the cultivators in Tianhuang mainland, no matter who the titular disciple of Asura's sect was, there was only a single person who was the Asura. This was the only person who was worthy of the title Asura as well. Many cultivators looked relieved when they saw who it was. The Asura was probably the only one in the world with such guts. The Asura was the only one with such boldness. The Asura was the only one who dared to say the words feathered lowlife in front of the Golden Crow race. Asura? The 8th Prince had a dark expression and said coldly, I don't care who you are. In my eyes, you're already a dead man. Cough. Right then, young Master Arcane Ghost coughed gently. He gradually stood up and said in a slow manner, Asura, I know you. Initially, you were only a titular disciple of Asura's sect. However, due to unforeseen circumstances, you lost your beloved and comprehended the profound meaning of the Hatred Sutra by accident. Your combat strength increased exponentially and you transformed completely, turning into a true Asura. All these years, you've been despised by the immortals, Buddhas and fiends. Even Asura sect can't accommodate you. I'm curious as to why you're here. I'm here because I want to kill. Yen Beichen replied indifferently. Young Master Arcane Ghost smiled gently. There's no place left for you in the cultivation world, and these super sects are your enemies. To be precise, you should be on our side. Ting Luo, Goddess Xiaoxiang and the others turned to look. Everyone could clearly tell that young Master Arcane Ghost was trying to rope Yen Beichen in. As such, they could not help but look at the latter a little more. After the arrival of the primordial 6 races, young Master Arcane Ghost had been watching from the sidelines without saying a single word. Now that he stood out and wanted to rope in a human, it was clear that this person was extraordinary. I'm someone who value talents the most. Young Master Arcane Ghost said, if you're willing to join the witch race, I can guarantee that I'll treat you as a clansman and give you sufficient respect. The primordial 6 races were extremely prideful and viewed all living beings of the 10,000 races as ants. It was even more so for the young masters of the primordial races. But now, young Master Arcane Ghost stood forth to invite Yen Beichen personally and even made a promise. It was clear how sincere he was. The most important thing for young Master Arcane Ghost to rope in Yen Beichen was the latter's potential. The Fiend Emperor hatred was in existence second only to the human emperor. As for Yen Beichen, he was almost like the second Fiend Emperor hatred and might even be stronger. Sure, I can join the witch race. Yen Beichen paused for a moment. Go and kill that bunch of feathered lowlifes first. Green light flickered in the eyes of young Master Arcane Ghost. Many cultivators were speechless. The Asura was probably the only one in the world who dared to say something like that. Arcane Ghost. The 8th prince said coldly, I'm giving you face by letting you talk to him for so long, but how dare he humiliate the Golden Crow race like this? You can't protect him. I merely wanted to give him a chance because I'm appreciative of his talents. Young Master Arcane Ghost smiled and said coldly, since he doesn't know how to cherish it, everyone, do as you please. Since I can't use such a peerless saber, I might as well destroy it. The 8th prince turned around and sized up the Asura. Grinning, he said sinisterly, Asura, I'm thinking about how I'm going to torture you after suppressing you. I'm going to. You talk too much. Suddenly, Yen Beichen interrupted the 8th prince and slashed in reverse towards the latter. A black light tore through the air and released a suffocating aura of death. Beams of hatred fiend chi circled around and engulfed the 8th prince instantly. Nobody could describe how terrifying that slash was. It was as though everything was dark in an instant. The 8th prince's pupils constricted and his expression changed, revealing a hint of fear in his eyes. It had been a long time since he sensed the aura of death that was close by. Before the slash descended, he felt as though he was half a step into death's gates. Right in front of the living beings of the 10,000 races, the 8th prince suddenly shrieked and vanished from the spot, replaced by a gigantic 3D golden crow. Screech. The 3D golden crow burned with incomparably resplendent flames and extended his strongest third claw to grab the hatred fiend's saber. That third leg was the strongest attack of the golden crow race. Back then, it was the golden crow third prince's third leg that forced out Su Zimo's divine phoenix's claw. Clang! The hatred fiend's saber stood on the third leg and let out a metallic sound. Immediately after, a blood mist spewed out from midair. A gigantic, menacing golden crow leg was thrown into the air. At the same time, the 8th prince's tragic cry sounded. The living beings of the 10,000 races were shocked as they looked at everything in disbelief. The 8th prince's golden crow leg was severed by the hatred fiend's saber. The third leg of the golden crow race was like the heavenly eye race's heavenly eye. It was extremely difficult to heal once crippled. That single slash from the Asura crippled at least half of the 8th prince's cultivation. Asura. The cultivators were excited. Earlier on, the 8th prince did not even have to conjure his true form to suppress Mingzhen. But now that the Asura had descended, even though the 8th prince had reverted to his true form, he was still severely injured. Asura, you're finished. The eighth prince paused and said coldly, "Since you broke one of my legs, I'm going to skin you, pull out your tendons and burn your bones into ashes. I'll imprison your soul and torture you for 1,000 years." Yan Beichen's expression was unchanged, as though he had not heard anything. After slashing out, he did not stop at all and descended once more like a shadow. When he saw that, the eighth prince was scared out of his wits. Not good. The eighth prince was terrified. This person wants to kill me. It was no wonder why the eighth prince was careless. He truly had not expected the Asura to be so bold as to hunt him down relentlessly after severing a leg. Even the other primordial races had not expected this, let alone him. The eighth prince was backed by the entire Golden Crow race and the primordial 6 races. This person was already in hot soup after injuring the eighth prince severely. Now, he's even bent on killing the eighth prince. Asura, how dare you? The seventh prince was enraged and reverted to his true form right away. Flapping his wings, he descended from the skies and lunged towards Yan Beichen. Among the 4 princes, the 7th prince was the strongest. The 9th and 10th princes followed closely behind. The actions of the Asura enraged the Golden Crow race, and 3 princes attacked at the same time. Chapter 1559, Chaotic Battle. Chapter 1559, Chaotic Battle. Humph. Yan Beichen's expression was unchanged as his blood chi surged, releasing the full aura of a half-martial ancestor. Waving the hatred fiend's saber forward, he hollered, "Boundless hatred. Limitless hell." The slash released streams of rich fiend chi. A terrifying saber intent descended and enveloped the 4 princes of the Golden Crow race. Hatred surged endlessly with a torrential killing intent that resembled purgatory. Strictly speaking, that slash had already surpassed the Fiend Emperor hatred. Yan Beichen was fused with 2 cultivation techniques of the Fiend sex, the Asura Sutra and Hatred Sutra. He was the only one who could fuse those 2 cultivation techniques perfectly. Hatred and killing intent were released completely from that slash. "Be careful, everyone." The 7th prince hollered with a grim expression. Cling. Clang. The sound of metal clashing could be heard in midair. Yan Beichen's slash defended against the 3 princes that were charging forward, blocking all their attacks. The sun essence fire released by the 3 princes was devoured by the hatred fiend Shi and Asura fiend Shi as well and could not seep out any flames. Yan Beichen strode forward with a cold expression. The hatred fiend's saber tore through the air and transformed into a black streak of light, slashing down at the 8th prince. The 8th prince's face was pale as he released his escape technique and transformed into a golden streak of light, escaping into the distance. Flashes of blood appeared. Right in front of everyone, a gigantic 3D golden crow was cleaved into 2 from the middle by a black streak of light. Countless blood splattered and his organs spilled onto the ground with a torrential blood stench. No matter how fast the 8th prince's escape technique was, he could not match the Asura's saber. That slash split the 8th prince into 2. The 8th prince's essence spirit could not even escape and was destroyed by a single slash, dying on the spot. Pust. Gasps could be heard from the crowd. Many cultivators were dumbfounded in shock. The Asura was way too powerful. Notwithstanding the fact that he injured the 8th prince severely, he even managed to cleave the latter despite being surrounded by the attacks of the other 3 princes. For some reason, many cultivators felt their blood pump when they saw that. In their agitation, they gripped their fists and wished that they could rush out and stand shoulder to shoulder with the Asura. Too many cultivators were killed when the primordial 6 races descended previously. However, right from the beginning, none of the cultivators dared to step forward or uphold justice for the dead cultivators. But now, the Asura had arrived. The Asura was not here to uphold justice or seek redress for others. The Asura merely wanted to kill. However, that was enough. Who said that the human race had no paragons or monster incarnates? Boom. The 8th prince was dead. On the battlefield, the power of the ball of burning flames decreased significantly and a figure tore through the flames, descending before everyone once more. It was Ming Zhen. Ming Zhen isn't dead. The crowd exclaimed and many cultivators were delighted. Initially, many cultivators thought that Ming Zhen was already burned into ashes after being refined by the flames of the 8th prince for so long. To think that he was still alive. Back then, Tinglingzi put the Dharma characteristic Ming Zhen into the Destiny Blood Gourd to refine for an entire 10 years without being able to refine the latter. Although the 8th prince's sun essence fire was powerful, it could not do anything to his Xitigarbha golden body that had the support of the Green Lantern. The 7th prince stood in midair and looked at the 8th prince's corpse coldly as 2 golden flames burned in his eyes. Screech. The 9th prince reared his head and cried with a pained expression. Screech. Hundreds of golden crows reverted to their true forms and circled around the 8th prince's corpse in midair, crying endlessly. Asura, I'll have you pay with your life. The 7th prince roared and transformed into a flaming spear, charging towards Yanbeichen. The spear tore through the air and the dermic powers in the void burned. At the same time, the 9th and 10th princes attacked. The 3 princes released dermic arts and joined forces to attack Yanbeichen. Yanbeichen's expression was unchanged as he wielded the Hatred Fiend Saber and fused the saber technique of the Hatred Sutra and Asura Sutra perfectly. Every single slash contained 2 saber intents. Even the 3 princes did not dare to take it head-on and had to avoid it. For a battle of this level, even Ming Zhen could not interfere, let alone others. Humph. Ji Qingtian sneered, the Golden Crow race sure is shameless. Earlier on, they were even talking about a fair fight. The moment they saw that they could not win, they joined forces. No worries. Leng Rose said slowly, the Asura is way too strong. Even with the combined forces of 3 Golden Crow princes, they are suppressed by him. Screech. The 7th prince cried once more. The situation on the battlefield changed instantly. As though they had received an order, the hundreds of 3D golden crows spiraling in the firmaments attacked one after another, spitting out streams of sun essence fire that burned towards Yanbeichen. The crowd was in an uproar. This was no longer a group attack of 3 people. They were gathering the strength of a race to annihilate the Asura. Ming Zhen took a deep breath and joined the battlefield once more, fighting against a golden crow. A girl in pink strode out from the fiend's sect's pure maiden sect. She removed her veil and smiled at a golden crow. A boom sounded in the golden crow's mind and his eyes widened instantly, mesmerized by the girl in pink's smile. The girl in pink was the pure maiden of the fiend's sex, Demoness G. Demoness G's eyes shone brightly as she said gently, "Go and kill him." Demoness G pointed to another 3D golden crow beside the golden crow and ordered. When the golden crow that was bewitched by her heard that order, his eyes revealed a conflicted expression as he frowned and fell into pain. Demoness G frowned slightly. Although her bewitchment technique could bewitch the 3D golden crow, it triggered the bottom line in the latter's heart by asking him to kill his fellow clansmen. Kill. 2 3D golden crows noticed that and charged towards Demoness G. If it was a one-on-one fight, Demoness G's bewitchment technique could definitely unleash an extremely terrifying might. For example, even if she could not order the 3D golden crow earlier on to kill his fellow clansmen, Demoness G could kill the golden crow with ease. However, against the envelopment of hundreds of 3D golden crows, the power that Demoness G could release was limited as well. She could only hold back a few 3D golden crows with her exquisite steps. However, it was almost negligible against hundreds of 3D golden crows. Boom! An incomparably thick golden rod descended from the skies and smashed onto the back of a 3D golden crow, shattering it into pieces. The essence spirit of the 3D golden crow fled but was held down by a black basket filled with holes that descended from the skies. Beams of golden light burst forth and raging flames burned in the black iron basket, burning the golden crow's essence spirit into ashes instantly. At this point of the battle, another 3D golden crow had fallen. Chapter 1560, Kill. 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 Chapter 1560, Kill. 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 All living beings were shaken. Up till this point of the battle, only the Asura had the power to kill the Golden Crow race, and he was the only one who dared to do so. To think that another 3D Golden Crow would die on the battlefield. Countless gazes looked over. 5 figures descended from the skies and entered the battlefield to fight against many 3D Golden Crows. The most striking thing was an ape that was dozens of feet tall with long fur all over its body. Its eyes were bloodshot as it thumped its chest and stomped its feet, roaring into the skies as it waved its golden rod with a torrential demonic chi. The gigantic ape was extremely tough and violent. Despite the encirclement of 10 3D Golden Crows, it was still at ease and released a powerful counterattack. In terms of strength, the 3D Golden Crow was no match for the gigantic ape. Beside the gigantic ape was a tiger that shone with electric arcs. Its claws were sharp and it fought fiercely against the 3D Golden Crows that danced in midair. A crane circled in midair with flames burning on its body as well. Its bloodline was filled with the aura of a Baifeng. A golden lion roared with a terrifying might. Among the 4 demons, there was a seemingly weak and skinny fox. It had fiery red fur that shone with a crystalline luster. The little fox gripped a pitch-black basket tightly seized opportune moments to strike. The 3D Golden Crow earlier on was burned to death by that black basket. Monkey, the spirit tiger, Ching Ching, the golden lion and little fox stood out and joined the battle. It's them. When the sect master of Heavenly Dipper sect saw Monkey and the others, he suddenly stood up and declared, "Fellow Taoists of the primordial races, these 5 beasts are the sworn siblings of Desolate Marshal and the taboo Divine Ho. What are you doing?" The palace lord of Enigma Palace questioned loudly in rage. Ji Qingtian could not help but say, Heavenly Dipper sect watched idly as humans were bullied. Now that we have the help of these demon brothers, you guys are betraying them instead of expressing gratitude. Foo-foo. The sect master of Heavenly Dipper sect sneered, they're just a few beasts. The Asura was the one who was reckless in this matter and killed the Golden Crow 8th prince. It's only right for him to pay with his life. That's right. The sect master of Malevolent Earth sect nodded as well. If not for the Asura, the 10,000 race meet would have been held smoothly a long time ago. How would things have come to this? When they heard that, Ji Qingtian was not the only one, even the sect masters of Snowdrift Valley, Purple Firmament sect, Depankra Monastery, Diamond Monastery, and the others glared over angrily. If the Asura had not arrived, the human race would have suffered unimaginable humiliation. While the super sects were arguing, the other 5 primordial races were calm. Initially, the 5 primordial races merely wanted to watch the show and wait for the situation to develop. However, when they heard that Monkey and the others were sworn brothers of Desolate Marshal, they were intrigued. Desolate Marshal is probably dead. Ting Luo rubbed his chin and suddenly said, even if we can't kill Desolate Marshal to vent our frustrations, it's not bad killing his sworn siblings as well. Should we head down and play as well to stretch our bodies? Ting Luo licked his lips. I'm a little hungry. I can catch some food to eat. Savage I was motionless and had no intention of getting up. Rakshasa closed her eyes and rested as well, as though she did not want to participate in the fight. Goddess Xiaoxiang's gaze landed on Demoness Ji. Suddenly, she stood up and said coldly, leave that Demoness to me. Oh? Ting Luo asked, fellow Taoist Xiaoxiang, why would you be interested in a woman? I can't see anyone who has a more beautiful face than mine. Goddess Xiaoxiang said indifferently, however, if there's any, I'll destroy her personally. Ruthless, I like it. Ting Luo burst into laughter. Young Master Arcane Ghost stood up slowly as well. He looked at the Asura in midair and said coldly, seems like I'll have to deal with him personally. On the battlefield. Although the 5 siblings, Demoness Ji and Mingzhen were involved, it did not affect the situation much. The 3D Golden Crows they held back added up to less than 50. In other words, most of the 3D Golden Crows, including the 3 Golden Crow Princes, were still attacking Yen Beichen wildly. Against such a terrifying attack, Yen Beichen's aura rose continuously instead. The stronger the hatred in his heart, the stronger the power of the Hatred Sutra. Even the hundreds of Golden Crows, including the 3 princes, could not suppress him. Hatred. Yen Beichen roared tragically and his eyes were pitch black as ink. Waving the Hatred Fiend's saber, streams of Hatred Fiend chi circled around it. They were rich and vast, devouring the many dermic arts continuously. Poof! A wound appeared on Yen Beichen's body by a 3D Golden Crow. However, Yen Beichen slashed in reverse and killed the 3D Golden Crow. A single wound in exchange for the life of a 3D Golden Crow. Poof! A deep wound appeared on Yen Beichen's chest that was dripping with blood. However, as though he could not feel any pain, he slashed in reverse and sliced the 3D Golden Crow into 2. The essence spirit of the 3D Golden Crow was devoured by the Hatred Fiend Shi and died on the spot. Kill. 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 Yen Beichen had already lost his rationality completely and was in a realm of hatred intent where he could not feel pain or pressure. There was only endless hatred left in his heart. He only wanted to kill all the living beings before him. More wounds appeared on Yen Beichen's body. However, the number of 3D Golden Crows that died under the Hatred Fiend's saber increased as well. The ground was strewn with the corpses of 3D Golden Crows. There were 100 of them and it was a shocking sight. What are you guys waiting for? The voice of the 7th prince sounded, somewhat anxious. He knew very well that when Yen Beichen entered the hatred intent realm completely, his hatred was boundless and his strength was endless, causing his combat strength to increase limitlessly. Unless his stamina was depleted, there was no one who could defend against his attacks. Back in the ancient war, the Fiend Emperor Hatred fell into this intent realm and countless experts of the primordial races died to the Hatred Fiend's saber. Young Master Arcane Ghost smiled gently and walked towards Yen Beichen. His ghastly green eyes shone with a strange glint that was filled with a sinister power. The next moment, the 3D Golden Crow before Yen Beichen vanished. In its place was a familiar back view. Pian ran. Yen Beichen was stunned and exclaimed instinctively. "Brother Yen, it's me. I'm not dead." The beautiful figure turned around and smiled gently at Yen Beichen, saying in a tender voice. "Pian ran, you're not dead. You're not dead." Yen Beichen was agitated and hot tears streamed down his face as he placed the Hatred Fiend's saber in his hands down. Clang! Clang! Sensing danger, the Hatred Fiend's saber buzzed and trembled, warning repeatedly. Yen Beichen had already fallen completely into this illusion and could not extricate himself. Asura. Upon noticing that, Demoness Ji looked anxious. In a flash, she wanted to rush to Yen Beichen's side and help him out of the illusion. Right then, a figure appeared in front of Demoness Ji. With an indifferent expression, Goddess Xiaoxiang looked down at Demoness Ji with a faint hint of envy in her eyes. "Demoness, I'm your opponent." Chapter 1561, Imminent Danger. Chapter 1561, Imminent Danger. Demoness Ji's heart skipped a beat. Goddess Xiaoxiang was not an ordinary god race being, she was the strongest monster incarnate of the god race in recent years. Demoness Ji could not divert her attention to worry about the Asura after being targeted by such a monster incarnate of the god race because her situation had turned extremely dangerous as well. "Sister, I'm not your match. Can't we talk?" Demoness Ji's eyes were slightly red as she said with teary eyes, looking aggrieved. The bewitchment technique of the Pure Maiden Sutra did not differentiate between race or gender, it was a Tao technique that could bewitch all living beings and topple the world. No matter who it was, they would feel a sense of love and pity at the sight of Demoness Ji's pitiful expression. Even Ting Luo was slightly stunned when he saw it from the side with a sinister glint in his eyes. However, he woke up quickly and smacked his lips, murmuring softly, "This little demoness has some tricks up her sleeves." If it was any other god race being, they would definitely be bewitched by Demoness G. However, Goddess Xiaoxiang's reaction was extremely fast. Two divine lights burst forth from her eyes as she released her god's eye instantly and tore through the air. The descent of the visual technique instantly broke the intent created by Demoness G. Demoness G used the exquisite steps and avoided the two visual techniques by a hair's breadth. Her pink dress was sliced by the two divine lights and its hemline turned into nothingness. Demoness G was secretly alarmed. Pure maiden sect specialized in bewitchment techniques, but they were ordinary in terms of blood chi and physique. If the two divine lights landed on her, they would probably penetrate her body. Boom! Goddess Xiaoxiang strode forward and threw a punch towards Demoness G. Golden light burst forth and the void trembled before her punch even descended. It was truly hard to imagine that such a woman could release such ferocious power with a casual punch. Demoness G did not dare to take it head-on and dodged in a flash. Goddess Xiaoxiang sneered coldly and her blood chi surged. Beams of golden light emanated from her body as she chased relentlessly like a god. The god race was ranked at the top of the primordial 9 races in terms of physique and blood chi. As a monster incarnate of the god race, Goddess Xiaoxiang's physique and power of blood chi could suppress all paragons of the same cultivation realm. Demoness G would definitely lose if she fought head-on. Therefore, from the beginning, Demoness G had already made use of the exquisite steps to dodge continuously. Although Goddess Xiaoxiang's attacks were ferocious, she could not lock onto Demoness G and her attacks missed repeatedly. Exquisite steps came from Fairy Ling Long and was no small feat. Even Goddess Xiaoxiang could not do anything to Demoness G right away. On the other side, Yan Beichen was affected by young Master Arcane Ghost's essence spirit and fell into an illusion. He was unable to extricate himself and it was extremely dangerous. Even with the constant warning from the Hatred Fiend Saber, Yan Beichen could not wake up. The cultivation of the witch race's essence spirit was the most terrifying. Young Master Arcane Ghost was a terrifying existence who could control one's heart. His attack this time round was even more terrifying than the hundreds of 3D golden crows. It was like a viper in the darkness that bit Yan Beichen on the vital spot. There was no way external forces could break through the hatred intent. Even if the primordial 6 races attacked together, they wouldn't be able to distance Yan Beichen from the hatred intent. The only way to break through the hatred intent was by targeting Yan Beichen personally. Qin Pianran was Yan Beichen's only flaw. Clang! Clang! Suddenly, the Hatred Fiend's saber broke free from Yan Beichen's palm and transformed into a black streak of light that circled around him, blocking all the incoming dermic weapons. Immediately after, the Hatred Fiend's saber turned its blade and stabbed into Yan Beichen's chest. The slash pierced Yan Beichen's chest. What happened? The Fiend's saber killed its master? Something's not right. That Fiend's saber seems to be trying to wake Yan Beichen up. The cultivators were shocked and they saw that. As for Yan Beichen, who was in the illusion, he suddenly clutched his chest with a pained expression. With a dull grunt, he broke free from the illusion and his eyes gradually regained their clarity. "Thank you, brother." Yan Beichen murmured softly and gripped the Hatred Fiend's saber in reverse, pulling the saber out of his chest. Hatred Fiend's chi circled around the wound and not a single drop of blood flowed out. Yan Beichen gripped the Hatred Fiend's saber once more and suddenly felt waves of weakness and fatigue. Initially, he could not feel pain or fatigue after entering the hatred intent realm. Under the stimulation of the Hatred Fiend chi, he fought fiercer and fiercer. But now, although he broke through the illusion of young Master Arcane Ghost, he broke free from the hatred intent realm as well and felt a sharp pain. Up till this point of the battle, he had countless wounds on his body under the encirclement of the Golden Crow race. He might not be able to hold on if the battle continued. Monkey and the others were encircled and the situation was not optimistic for them either. Everyone was in danger. Young Master Arcane Ghost smiled gently at the 7th Prince. The hatred intent has been dispelled. I'll leave the rest to you guys. Thank you. The seventh prince nodded slightly. Without the support of the hatred intent, Yen Beichen could not defend against the encirclement of the Golden Crow race. Bang! Right then, an incomparably thick blood vine tore through the air and whipped Yen Beichen heavily on the chest, sending him flying. Ha 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 ha. Ting Luo's laughter sounded. Arcane ghost, you've already had your fill, but I've yet to attack. When he saw that, the palace lord of Enigma Palace was enraged and could no longer hold it in as he hollered, Ting Luo, are the primordial 6 races going to give complete disregard to the rules? You guys clearly said that it's a one-on-one battle. When you guys saw that you could not win, you used an entire race to try and suppress the Asura. Now, the Bloodvine, God and Witch races are even attacking together as well. What's the meaning of this? That's right. The Valley Master of Snowdrift Valley slammed the table and stood up, saying in a deep voice, all the living beings of the 10,000 races are here. How can the 10,000 races be convinced by your primordial 6 races' overbearing nature of reneging on your words without any regard for the rules? Cultivators from the major sects and factions of Purple Firmament Sect, Dipamkara Monastery, Overlord Palace as well as various immortal, Buddhist and Fiend sects stood out and shouted. Rules? The smile on Ting Luo's face vanished and his expression turned cold. He looked at the sect masters of the super sects and said coldly, rules are set for weaklings like you. Rules are meant to be broken by the strong. Furthermore, from this day forth, all the rules of Tianhuang mainland will be decided by our primordial 6 races. All of you will have to abide. On what grounds? A cultivator was indignant and could not help but grumble, the primordial 6 races aren't the ones calling the shots in Tianhuang mainland right now. A blood vine suddenly burrowed from the ground beneath the cultivator's feet and pierced his chest. The cultivator's face was pale as he lowered his head slowly. Gazing at the thick blood vine that popped out of his chest, his eyes were filled with shock and blood flowed continuously from his mouth. The gigantic mouth at the top of the blood vine opened slowly, revealing a cold glint. Its intertwining fangs devoured the cultivator's head in a single mouthful. Its fangs closed and it almost snapped the cultivator's neck, causing blood to spew out. Right in front of everyone, the blood vine twitched and devoured the cultivator before long. The endless essence blood surged into Ting Luo's body through the thick blood vine. Suddenly, strange blood scars appeared on Ting Luo's face and crawled all over his face like spider webs before vanishing. With a ferocious expression, Ting Luo stuck out his grisly red tongue and smacked his lips, grinning. What fresh meat! It's way too delicious. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.